And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
For today, it's Wednesday, February 6, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is my son, my co-host of the Hagmann Report, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann Report. And folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news analysis and information that is important for all of us to know in these times in which we live. For those new to the program, we broadcast live each weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us at our home base, and that's HomelandSecurityUS.com. From there, we have links to the Christians United Broadcasting Network, and of course, our sister station, or sister colleagues to the north, CanadaFreePress.com. I want to say hello to them as well tonight. Joe, how you doing this evening?
Fantastic. Feel a lot better than I did yesterday. Whatever was going on was some kind of stomach problem that fixed itself after the show. But I woke up feeling great, and had a good day.
Good.
Got a lot done as far as research. Got a lot of reading a lot of comments according from your article, about your article that you wrote, and you were on the Pete Santilli show today.
Yeah, I believe,
fantastic job.
Thanks. I believe they have those on. I believe Pete Santilli, that show has archives to that show in case you missed it if you want to tune in.
Yeah, they actually are rebroadcasting it right now.
Wow.
At last check, they were.
Two places at one time, right?
Yeah.
All right. We have a lot of news to cover tonight, of course. The article that people have requested that I put up to be latest from the DHS Insider, of course I did. And I feel like one of those, you know when you go to a gym, you see those punching bags hanging by a chain, or chains from the ceiling, and it's like a long tube.
Should I name the show "Don't Shoot the Messenger" Part 2?
Well, whatever. Yeah, sure. I just feel like one of those punching bags today. But you know what?
No, just to give people an idea of what you're talking about. Just a simple one comment we saw. Well, if the source why didn't he take the binder out with him?
And you mentioned,
I don't have to answer the reasons.
No,
give an answer.
You said it kind of struck me as funny. Anyone familiar with the television show The Office, it's not that type of environment.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight, spending your time tonight. I know, especially if you're spending it live, as I know that. Of course, listening to it live. Thank you so much for your investment of time. We'll talk about what the DHS Insider said, what it implies for us. And if folks, if you have not read the article, of course, it's top story on HomelandSecurityUS.com and CanadaFreePress.com. I urge you to, if you don't mind, just click like on both the CFP, Canada Free Press, and HomelandSecurityUS.com, so it gets some exposure. And the reason that I think it's not so much to, and I even hate to use this word, promote the article. It's not so much to promote the article as it is to educate the people, and let people know what's really taking place behind the scenes. I think that the more informed we are about what's going on, the better off we're going to be, and at least we'll have a fighting chance. And I've gotten a lot of, I don't know how many emails, it's triple digits for sure, asking me, well, what's the credibility of your source? And if I can just answer all the hundreds of emails I got, I don't write fiction, and I'm certainly not going to write about. I'm not going to provide information to my readers about a source I don't believe in. So if you are really asking me that question, do you really believe what your source is saying? Or what's the credibility of your source? Do you think your source has credibility? if you actually type that email to me, please understand, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm not going to send you an email back because I wouldn't write it if I didn't believe what I was saying and if I didn't believe it was the truth. It's kind of an incredible question to ask as far as I'm concerned. So,
some of those people who do doubt, pray about it, find out.
Well, of course,
do some research. I mean, you don't have to believe us. Of course, there's a million other websites that will be reporting and are reporting similar things. We know between Google turning over all its information to the government and Twitter now following suit along with Facebook, we see what goes on around the internet and the forums and chat rooms.
Well, the founder, I heard this today, that the founder of Twitter was in the White House with
Yeah. And Eric Schmidt, the head of Google, CEO of Google, travels to these, cybersecurity, infrastructure, government meetings around the world.
Right.
Either way, it doesn't matter if you guys believe the information or not. It's out there, and take it for what,
Yeah,
take it for what you will. But just to let you know, we are fighting a battle where the tyrannical government of America now has labeled us enemies, and not just in words, not just in law enforcement guides, but in legislation that is passed and now law of the land. Not only has it labeled us enemies, it has labeled or given itself the power to indefinitely detain or kill any person on U.S. soil or not without any evidence, due process, or trial.
Exactly how did we get to this? Well, I suppose we couldn't go through this. We know how we got to this point. We got to this point in time by not resisting, by not saying, no, we can't do this. And I think that we were played for fools after the attacks of 9/11, the very high-profile attacks where everyone wrapped themselves around in a flag, which, the patriotism of America, which was a good thing. And you have to admit, I felt good when I saw flags flying, American flags flying, and everyone was unified, or so it seemed after the attacks of 9/11. But then to exploit that patriotism to create mechanisms against the very people who are lovers of the Constitution and of the country, to me, is unforgivable. So that's why I look back at the Bush administration, and the more I look at what happened during those 8 years, even though I supported him at the time, the more angry I am, because it's almost like it's almost like someone close to you being betrayed by someone very close to you. And I think that's what we have to realize, that partisan politics is no longer. I watched a little bit of an interview with an intelligence agent, with a former FBI agent, and some of you might know him, and his name is Ted Gunderson, of course. And when I mention the name, I'm sure some of you will say, "Oh, well, geez, I don't like him," and other people will say, "Oh, yeah, I like him a lot." It's not the messenger; it's the message, just like us. But it's just, this transcends politics. Everything we talk about transcends politics, political party. But he was talking about the book I talked about yesterday. And I would recommend, seriously, anyone who has the opportunity and the extra few dollars, Pawns in the Game by William Guy Carr. And it was a book written back in the 1950s. And especially if you're older like me, you'll appreciate the time in which it was written, how it was written, and the information that was provided. But the information is still valid today. And what's taking place, the people behind the curtain that are moving the puppets that we see. But the 25 goals of the globalists are listed in this book. And then, of course, he calls them the Illuminati, but the 25 specific goals to control the entire world are in here. And once again, as it was written back in 1954, it is still valid today. So there is nothing new under the sun, and that is true. it's something that I would really recommend everyone to get their hands on. The name of the book is Pawns in the Game, William Guy Carr. You can find it, I believe, on Amazon.com. William Guy Carr passed away back in 1959, and he was the author of a number of books. But I opened the show yesterday with an excerpt from that fine publication. So that said, but we've got a lot of news tonight about drones, and I know Alex+Jones today on InfoWars was talking a lot about drones. You're telling me, Joe, about
yeah, I heard part of the program where I listened to maybe a half hour, and then I switched to something else. I was doing research, and then I switched to when I started listening to the Santilli show when you went on, and heard 75% of it. Missed the last half hour, but listened for before that, and it was great the way he really built you up before the show, and it was a really good interview, very positive.
Yeah, I was doing before the show. I didn't really hear what he said before, but
he was talking about how he's been reading your articles for a long time and how much he respected you, and he was very.
Well, he said he was 8 years old and listening to Art Bell when I was on. I'm thinking, man, am I old or what? Talk about feeling like a dinosaur, But and I remember those times, and you know what? I do remember being on. I was on with Linda right before, or at the same time as Linda Moulton Howe was on, and it was one time I believe it was with Art Bell, and it was unexpected because I thought at the time that he was having guest hosts fill in, and I vaguely remember this. I don't know, as you get older, your memory goes. But
yeah, I think I remember once you were on with him.
Yeah, and I remember because I thought, wow, because you and I, when you were in school, we used to turn on the radio in the very early morning hours before school and listen to him, and I'm thinking, and I remember thinking at the time being on, I'm thinking, wow, I never expected being on. As you and I listened when we were growing up and before school, I never thought I'd see that. But anyway, enough down memory lane. We've got so much going on right now, folks. The people are turning on Obama about these drone strikes, it seems like.
Oh, yeah. This is incredible. I didn't upload the video or the audio of Ed Schultz, but I'll read it. I didn't upload the video of Rachel Maddow, but I'll read it. But I did upload some MSNBC. I mean, this is really weird. When I go and look at what's going on in the news, Real Clear Politics has a video category where they show some of the top clips from the day from around the different news people. And when I see some of these, what was being promoted, you have Rachel Maddow questions Obama's drone program. You have Joe Scarborough, which will play this clip. America's King Obama is chilling and frightening drone program. When you have Ed Schultz saying and laying out a case, drone rules don't meet moral or constitutional standard. All his cheerleaders are calling him out on this. Why?
Why now?
Yeah.
And that's, see, okay, now that's a good question to ask. Okay.
I mean, if they can stand there and
is there something else going on?
They can promote his other illegal activities.
Right.
And, say everything else is a conspiracy theory. Well, why all of a sudden is there a unified, almost like they were told, each one of you must do a piece against Obama and his drone strikes?
It almost seems very coordinated. Now, this is where we look at the news media in this case and ask not what we're hearing, but why we're hearing what we're hearing, what's going on behind the scenes to cause this unity. And heretofore, they have been very pro-Obama regardless. And we've often said he could take and slaughter a goat on the front lawn of the White House or whatever, and they would stick up for him. However, this it seemed to cross some sort of a line.
Yes, and we're going to start with this.
All right,
this is a 3-minute clip of what Eric Holder said yesterday.
And note note the battle lines, or when you listen to this. Listen to this with the idea of watching or putting the battle lines, where they're forming and how they are forming, because that's the real important part of this.
Well, there have been a series of speeches that I gave, Jay Johnson gave, John Brennan gave, where we tried to lay out for the American people the considerations that go into the operations. And one of the things I want to make sure that everybody understands is that our primary concern is to keep the American people safe, but to do so in a way that's consistent with our laws and consistent with our values. We have as a basis for action that we take a congressional statute that allows us to operate against Al-Qaeda and associated entities, not only in Pakistan or not only in Afghanistan, but in other parts of the world. We say that we only take these kinds of actions when there's an imminent threat, when capture is not feasible, and when we are confident that we're doing so in a way that's consistent with federal and international law. I mean, as I said, I think we laid it out, I think, fairly well in those three speeches.
Mr. Attorney General, you brought up the phrase imminent threat. Is that the same as an ongoing threat, or is there a difference between those two?
Well, I mean, some of these things are fact-based, and I can't necessarily get into the weeds or kind of parse these things. You can't, I think, examine these terms without having a reference to the facts. And I'm not in a position in this environment, in a classified environment, I can get more specific, but I'm confident that the definitions that we have used and the explanations that, for instance, that I used in my Northwestern speech are accurate representations of the drivers, the facts.
These memos, I mean, you were a driving force behind releasing the Bush administration's torture memos. Why aren't you a force for this?
Well, I mean, we'll have to, look at this and see what it is we want to do with these memos. But you have to understand that we are talking about things that go into really kind of how we conduct our offensive operations against a clear and present danger to this nation.
Bring us into the classified setting, then.
I'm not sure you could pass a background check. I'm just kidding. But that is a real concern, to reveal sources, potentially reveal sources and methods, and put at risk the very mechanisms that we use to try to keep the American people safe, which is our primary responsibility.
The memo doesn't seem to be classified, though, right? It was marked confidential but not classified. Why not release that to the general public? And in that memo, it seems to be you say that an ongoing threat amounts to an imminent threat. So you said that you can only discuss that in a classified setting, but in this memo you're discussing the difference between those two. We're taking what sounds like an ongoing threat and saying that it's an imminent threat.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something we'd have to look into, what's exactly in the white paper. We'd have to look into that.
All right, that was Eric Holder.
Spouting off a lot of what Jay Carney said yesterday, pretty much that this is ethical, legal, moral, driven, it's not their will, it's their Lord's will, their overlord's will.
I was going to say, well, you kind of threw me on that, but yeah.
Their lords,
right.
Their overlords,
well,
whichever it is.
So you've got, and really, when you think about this, I suspect that perhaps the most important story right now, looking at things now from a national point of view, is the drone decision, not the blowback, although that's secondary, but the decision by the executive branch on the drone strikes. Now, why it's important is because there's a very small step between Anwar al-Awlaki and John Smith, Don't Tread on Me, the Gadsden flag flyer, with the Ron Paul bumper sticker on there. Now, you might think, well, no, that's really hogwash, but when you think about it, from a legal sense, they're both American citizens. By definition, they're both terrorists. One is engaging in Islamic terrorism, the other is engaging in perhaps terrorism, that fits the definition, the latest definition. So really, what's the legal difference between the two? Now, obviously, one will say that, or one could say that there's a big world of difference between the two, but then again, in a legal sense, the legal standard, I don't believe there is. So there you have it. But Joe, from the beginning of the program, when you mentioned the unified approach from the MSNBC,
Ed Schultz.
Ed
Schultz says, I have to say, as an American citizen, we are all entitled to due process under the law. And this document gives the president the ability to act as a judge, jury, and executioner. I'm troubled by it. It doesn't meet the moral or constitutional standards that we expect of any administration. And I have to say that liberals have come certainly a long way to crying about the FISA court and the Patriot Act and listening in on conversations to literally taking out innocent people around the world. We're losing the moral high ground by doing this, and even more troubling, there are people in Washington who are ominously silent and not questioning this process and willing to stand behind the legal option of the Justice Department. This President Obama's legacy right now, this is Obama's legacy right now, and it is dangerous.
Okay,
that's coming from Ed Schultz.
No, I will say this. Once again, Ed Schultz could say it. God bless Ed Schultz for saying it. Although I don't really care for the business. God bless him for saying it.
If he means it.
Well, of course, if he means it. But let's give him at this point the benefit of the doubt. And as much as I take issue with other progressives, whether they're whoever. Thank you for saying this.
Maybe this could be an excuse. Oh yes, you're right, Obama. All you guys are. This is Obama. All you guys are right. We're going to bring all the drones home. We'll just use them here.
Well, but is there? And this brings up another point. Is there a differentiation between drone use overseas and drone use domestically? Because as Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator, if you want to play politics, the battlefield statement. Is there any differentiation between drone use here or drone use in Pakistan?
No. When reading that memo from the DOJ,
right?
No.
Okay.
There's not. If any person is perceived to pose a threat, even if it's not Al-Qaeda related,
right?
Correct. They have a duty, they say, a legal and ethical and wise duty to take that person out in the name of saving American lives. That's what the memo says.
Okay, no.
And Judge Napolitano came out today. We played a clip from him.
But do you agree with that statement? Stop right there. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay.
No, I agree with it in certain situations, and this is Monday night quarterbacking.
No, it wouldn't even be that.
In Libya, when the consulate was under attack for 8 hours.
Right.
When 2 or 3 Navy SEALs and a Marine held off, 300 to 400 people with rocket launchers and machine guns that were assaulting their compound, which led to the deaths of those men at Stevens for 8 hours. That I understand where a drone strike could come in.
Right.
You don't drone strike, and Napolitano lays out a case.
Wait. A lot for you can go in there.
And his.
Right, I understand that. But let's stop. Because here's what we're talking about. Here's the difference that we're talking about. We're talking about, let's put this in a context which everyone is familiar with. You're watching a police officer that's standing next to a bank or at a bank or whatever. You're at a bank with the police officer. You're both doing business. The guy at the teller's window takes a gun, shoots the teller, and says this bank is under, a holdup or whatever. The police officer shoots that man on the spot because he just was posing a threat to numerous people. That's a contemporaneous threat. Now let's just say that that would happen. That a drone, for example, would witness a contemporaneous threat against an American city, whether that be a truck heading for the Grand Central Station loaded with explosives, and it was still out, a county away, and there was no other way to stop that felony or that potential loss of life. So that would be a drone strike. We'll say that would it not be warranted, in your knowledge or in your view? Or let's say there was an atomic bomb, a terrorist transporting a small atomic bomb across the desert of New Mexico, and they were going to deploy it in Kansas City, and the only way to take it out safely would be a drone strike by hitting it in the desert. No, strike against that, Joe. Would you agree that would be okay?
If there was provably a person with the capabilities about to carry out an attack on the U.S.
Okay.
That was provable.
Right.
But I think a judge should have to sign off on that. And if there's not time, in certain situations, there should be a panel of.
Well, if you can get a panel, you should be able to get a judge.
Well, regardless, but I'm saying there are very seldom
a very narrow circumstance.
Not like we're seeing with this just broad campaign, and the one excuse that we can go back and look at history on is the killing of one militant at a wedding, killing the whole wedding of hundreds of people.
Well, okay, from that, now you're looking at a situation that does not have the urgency or immediacy that there's no threat to people because that person is engaged in a passive behavior that has nothing to do with terrorism. That is a sanction. By definition, that's a sanction. So what Obama is doing is actually sanctioning, and look that up from in the intelligence lexicon, to sanction someone. The Iger sanction, the movie. And we talked about the killing of someone. So that's a sanction move operation, and that's what Obama is talking about, as opposed to being the Jack Bauer of the world and saving the country from a potential terrorist threat that may or may not exist. Even if we give him the benefit of the doubt that it exists, that should be few and far between. So but what he's talking about is a punishment, acting as judge, jury, and executioner, not as a police officer, savior, or anything else. And that's the big difference. I don't know if that made sense. I'm going to do that very quickly, but you get the idea. He's acting as the judge, jury, and executioner in a situation that has no immediate danger, no immediacy at all. Is that like a?
I was playing with a quarter.
Okay. Kids today, but you see what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, I understand.
But I think. So, but now let's look at the.
But when you can't have that power, even in that limited of basis, for a president to authorize something like that. We have a lawless president.
Right. No. Well, I don't want
the power should really lie in the chief military leadership, the chief military brass. There should be a special chief military unit put together of people who have different strategies and ideas when it comes to warfare. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, that doesn't have any political skin.
People who have
any obvious political skin in the game.
People who do care about humans, as no matter what country they live in.
How are you going to pass that test, or how are you going to?
Yeah, that's a lot easier said. If the perfect situation would be to have a panel of God-fearing Christians,
right,
who don't want murders on their hands, want to do things according, to the rule of law, but that's wishful thinking, and that has been long out the window a long time ago. Let's go to this Napolitano.
All right, let's do it.
And then we come back with more.
The other stuff is just really white noise for people.
A confidential Justice Department memo obtained by NBC News reveals that the U.S. government can order the killing of any American citizen believed to be associated with al-Qaeda.
So Fox News senior judicial analyst Andrew Napolitano is here. Going to hear a lot of talk about this with the CIA confirmation hearings beginning for the new director-to-be, John Brennan, if he's confirmed. So your take on what we've been hearing about drones and the legality of them.
Well, federal judges and ordinary citizens have been seeking the legal research on which the government has relied for its claimed authority that the president can kill Americans overseas if he believes that they are in imminent danger of harming the United States national security. And the government has resisted this in every forum, and in most forums it has succeeded in persuading federal judges this information can't be revealed because it'll violate national security secrets. Suddenly it shows up in an NBC newsroom earlier this week. It could only have come from a governmental source. So they really have made fools of the federal judges who've spent hours and days and weeks struggling over the laws involved here. The document itself is breathtaking and chilling in the cavalier way in which it suggests that the president, actually it doesn't even say the president, guys. It says any informed high-level U.S. government official can strip an American of his or her constitutional protections and order the killing of that American if the person is overseas, if it's difficult to arrest that person,
and that's
if it's likely they're going to harm national security.
Not defined, right, who that official would be.
No, it's not defined. Imminent is not defined. Danger is not defined.
Right.
This is the power claimed by kings and tyrants. This is about as un-American a power as one could imagine. This is in direct defiance of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, which guarantees due process, a jury trial, before the government can take your life or liberty. This is in defiance of federal law, of state laws, and of treaties to which the United States is a party.
How does this move in the court system, you think?
Well,
how is it false?
That's a very interesting question, Dagan. All this came about when the president dispatched drones to kill New Mexico-born, admitted al-Qaeda-affiliated Anwar al-Awlaki, New Mexico-born, an American citizen. And he sent a follow-up drone to kill Mr. Awlaki's 16-year-old Colorado-born American citizen son, and the friend's American citizen 16-year, and the son's American 16-year-old friend. Their grandfather filed a lawsuit to enjoin the president from killing them before the drones were sent. And a federal judge said, well, there's no standing here. How do I know what the president's going to do? You can't stop the president from breaking the law in the future because the Justice Department claims the president always obeys the law. Now that lawsuit has been revived because we now know that the president admits that he did send the drones to kill them. So in the context of a lawsuit, a federal, by survivors, a federal judge, to get to the answer to your question, may decide whether or not the government can do this. Now, I submit the Supreme Court has already decided it, because the Supreme Court basically told the Bush administration in 5 or 6 Supreme Court opinions, the most notable of which is Hamdi, saying you just can't take a person and try them before some cockamamie court. It's got to be a court authorized by the Constitution. And the Supreme Court said the sort of trust us argument that the government says doesn't wash because the Constitution won't let it wash.
Well, I'm a big fan of Judge Napolitano. The guy's really a constitutional expert, and I believe that everything right there, you've got the answer. It's end of story. I mean, there's a period after that appearance there. Yes, a period from a sentence. I mean, it's enough. That's all it needs to be. Look, if it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. Let's get rid of it. Let's get back to the Constitution. And enough said on that.
Unconstitutional, as Judge says, not only that, is actions of a king or a tyrant.
You know, and that's frightening because we're going to get into this in the second hour from what the DHS source said. It's very frightening. King, tyrant, pharaoh, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, his exact quote was, this is the power claimed by kings and tyrants. So, wow. And also, he said it is one Supreme Court case, but a few others that said this was unconstitutional activity. And this from the yesterday from the New York Times. Drone strikes risks to get more rare moment in the public eye.
No, that's a very cumbersome title, but what does it mean?
It says late August. I'll read part of it first. And this is Sana'a, Yemen. Late August, a 40-year-old cleric named Salem Adnan bin al-Jabbar stood up to deliver a speech denouncing al-Qaeda in a village mosque in far eastern Yemen. It was a brave gesture by a father of 7 who commanded great respect in the community, and it did not go unnoticed. 2 days later, 3 members of al-Qaeda came to the mosque of the tiny village after 9 p.m., saying they really wanted to talk with us. Mr. Jabbar agreed to meet with him, bringing his cousin Walid Abdullah, the police officer, for protection. The 5 men stood arguing by a cluster of palm trees. A volley of remotely operated American missiles shot down from the night sky, incinerated them all, along with the camel that was tied up nearby.
So, okay. And we could take case after case.
Right.
After
and
case.
It's saying this now. And it goes on that says this kind of killing of a leader, nonetheless, to American efforts to eradicate al-Qaeda was a reminder of the inherent hazards of the quasi-secret campaign of targeted killings that the U.S. is waging war against suspected militants, not just in Yemen, but also in Pakistan and Somalia. And now we see them building a base in North Africa, a new drone base, and today just came out CIA operating a drone base in Saudi Arabia. Okay? Now it goes on to talk about Mr. Brennan. It says, Individual strikes by the Predator and Reaper drones are almost never discussed publicly by Obama administration officials, but the clandestine war will remain a rare moment of public scrutiny on Thursday when its chief architect, John Brennan, the White House counterterrorism advisor, faces a Senate confirmation hearing as Obama's nominee for the CIA director. From his basement office in the White House, Mr. Brennan has served as the principal coordinator of a kill list of Al-Qaeda operatives marked for death, and I'll add, this is me adding, associated forces, or anybody they consider to be a militant, overseeing drone strikes by the military and CIA, and advising Mr. Obama on which strikes he should approve. He's probably had more power and influence than anyone in a comparable position in the last 30 years, said Daniel Benjamin, who recently stepped down as State Department's top counterterrorism official and now teaches at Dartmouth. He had an enormous sway over the intelligence community. He had a profound impact on how the military does counterterrorism. Now, I see this as passing the buck. Obviously, the president has more of a command over John Brennan's authority than this article will lead people to believe. He does, like many people, advise the president on many things, and the president can choose to take the advice and decide one way or another based on the laws and everything else that goes along with it.
But let's stop right here. Okay, so who is John Brennan? Let me just give you a quick rundown for the people listening live and for those listening on archive. Be sure we understand who this man is. Really quick. His title, Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. Who does he report to? He reports to the National Security Advisor, James Jones. Department that handles similar issues as the Department of Homeland Security. So he's kind of like in the position he's in now, he's kind of a sister related to DHS. What are his duties? His duties are very simply to guard against natural disaster and terrorism. Just to be clear, those are his duties. Now, who is he? He graduated from Fordham back in 1977. That's in New York City. He earned a Juris Doctorate from the University of Texas at Austin. He was an intelligence director for the CIA beginning in 1980. Okay, so his career with the CIA goes back to 80. He led the counterterrorism efforts for a variety of CIA programs in the 90s. He became the director or chief of staff for, guess who? George Tenet. When Tenet was the CIA director, he became his chief of staff in 1999. Now, that's an important position to understand. Chief of staff for George Tenet. Keep that in the back of your mind for John Brennan. You're going to see that come up in the next coming.
He was chief of staff of
George Tenet.
George Tenet.
Okay, in 1999. So keep that. That's that one position right there. Folks, understand how important that is. George Tenet, when Tenet was the director of the CIA, Brennan was his chief of staff in 1999. Brennan served as a CIA deputy director from 01 through 03. Then he took a job at the National Counterterrorism Center from 04 to 05. How do you do this? How do you transition between the CIA, between public and private sectors, or between public sectors from the CIA to the to NCTC, the National Counterterrorism Center? It's odd, but it does. But here's where it gets worse, or even more odd. Just like Tenet's chief of staff in 99, 2005 to 2008, Brennan worked at the Analysis Corporation. So for 3 years, Brennan left the public service job after 25 years in or related to the CIA, including that stint under Tenet. He worked at the Analysis Corporation, which is his baby.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you want to inject some humor here, in mid-09, Brennan effectively declared an end to the war on terror.
And we played the audio clips a few times on this show, where he says we are not at war with Al-Qaeda, I think. I might be he might not have said Al-Qaeda, but he might have. He definitely said we're not at war with terror. I could say war on terror.
Basically what he said.
It is ended pretty much.
Well, he said that the United States would not seek to merely defeat al-Qaeda and its allies, but
integrate them into society through Janet Napolitano and outreach.
Oh, an outreach here.
Are these the people that they're going to be recruiting to the State Department position?
Maybe. But we don't want to simply defeat al-Qaeda. Brennan wants to address ignorance, poverty, repression. You know why? Because terrorist attacks are often the final murderous manifestation of a long process rooted in hopelessness, humiliation, and hatred. Now, I say that kind of, and I don't like doing voices or doing hyperbole, but see, here's the thing. You're going back to that social justice mentality, and wow. See, what Brendan was saying is, the war on terror is really the war on poverty, and that's the wrong approach, because it's actually it's just, ladies and gentlemen, you see where that's coming from. That's just the wrong approach. But one thing Brennan did was he supported the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Program during the Bush administration, extraordinary rendition, and enhanced interrogation techniques. This is something that is near and dear to, like, Sean Hannity's heart, because Sean Hannity believes in all of those. Which, why do I pick on him? I don't really need to pick on him, but just to kind of like, if you're out there talking with people who are like listen to talk radio, you can kind of get an idea of where these people are coming from. So actually, Brennan was really pro enhanced interrogation techniques, waterboarding and such. Now, really quick, during the 2008 presidential campaign, Brennan changed his position, saying repeatedly that the Obama administration would never condone torture or use extrajudicial techniques against the enemy. So now he's changed his tune quite a bit, and that we have to, we do have to understand. Now, Brennan was part, and this is something I didn't know, but okay, on Christmas Day of 2009, remember Joe, the Nigerian member of Al Qaeda that was permitted to board Northwest Airlines flight Abu Muttalib?
Oh yeah,
that guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was the reason for this was the underwear bomber.
Right. When Abu Muttalib tried to detonate the bomb, which was concealed inside his underwear, the underwear bomber, of course, as you said, it started a small fire, ouch, but failed to explode as planned. Passengers and crew members, subdued it and such. Now, in the aftermath of the attempted bombing, Brennan made clear that the Obama administration would treat the incident as a law enforcement matter instead of an act of terrorism. Okay, he announced that the perpetrator would be offered a plea agreement. See, now, I understand the law enforcement matter. I understand it. Do I agree with it? Well, that's not the issue, but I understand it. Why a plea agreement rather than treating it as what it would be, like an act of war or an act of terrorism, if that is indeed what it was? My contention, and I think, Joe, after your research, our contention, and I think I'm safe in saying this, is that they went for the plea agreement in order to cover up the backstory behind Abu Muttalib's. Okay.
Yeah. Kurt Haskell, a lawyer, and his wife were witnesses.
Correct.
And saw the man, a well-dressed Indian man, help.
No, just, we find out that the United States government now thinks it has the right to kill American citizens without due process or without probable cause or without any evidence or economic calamity at hand. By the way, I want to get...
All right. Something hit us pretty hard. It knocked everything off.
These zaps in the headphones, these zoop, zoop, zoop. And
the folks can hear us now. Yeah, I know you can hear typing because we were trying to bring up the software. Okay. All right, good. Something hit us really hard. It took us completely off the network. It took our computers out. It took our main mixer board out. It took our peripherals out, and that's what. Anyway, talking about John Brennan, the CIA chief, to be, I suppose that's what you get. But Brennan, just to pick up where we left off, and if I'm out of breath, I am, because I was running around trying to doing hard resets on the equipment. And this was not a power issue. It was a an internet/board issue. Anyway, the Abu Muttalib 2009 Christmas Day intended bombing.
Yeah, the State Department had to come out and admit they let that man on the plane.
Right.
And that was the result. What resulted from that was this huge expansion of the TSA and the equipment they use, and which are the naked body scanners, which are now turned into, if not naked body scanners, they use pat-downs where they sexually assault people every single day. And even further than that, they have expanded to different venues such as sporting events, highways, bus stations. They have Viper teams doing 9,000 checkpoints a year across the country.
That's correct.
And they're just getting warmed up.
And if, according to my DHS source, and by the way, we're going to be talking about the DHS information in the second hour. But according to the DHS source, the TSA will be expanded immensely here in the next several months or throughout the summer. But my question to you, with all of these people now, Joe, coming out against Obama and the drones, and I asked you this before the show, is Obama going to double down in his approach, or is he going to say, well, maybe I overstepped my bounds and kind of pull back a tad on this? And you,
okay, let's look at every other issue and every other thing.
Right.
He's going to double down, if I had to say. He's not going to slow down. They are in a full-fledged war against human beings, against life.
All right.
And they are determined, when I say they, I'm not just talking about Obama or his views or whatever. We are talking about a international cabal of people ranging from bankers to businessmen to
all right, folks. Sorry about that. Appreciate your patience in this. We are getting hit multiple times here by getting knocked off the air, so we apologize. But where were we?
We were talking about Muttalib and how the State Department let him on the plane to implement the body scanners and the expansion of the TSA.
All right. What I'm going to do here, folks, if I'm just go ahead, Joe, and continue that. I'm going to switch to the other hard line here.
Okay. If you can, move your mic out of the way. All right, there we go. There we go. All right.
I'm getting a lot of feedback from we actually just moved to a different country. How's that?
Now, this Muttalib was allowed on the plane by the State Department, or according to the State Department, an unnamed U.S. agency let Muttalib on the plane without a passport, fly internationally, where he tried to ignite or light with fire a bomb that was only capable of being detonated with a detonator.
Right. And this is the other thing, too. Brennan has connections to the passport office break-in. We talked about this earlier. We talked about this in the previous program. The Analysis Corporation, the employees there, had direct contact with or had engaged in this passport office break-in 3 different occasions back in 2008 while Obama was a candidate. Now, that said, what was done, it's my belief, based on research, that the passport records were cauterized, were cleansed, were changed. Something was done to the passport records, but in the same period of time, some of the information was given to a young man by the name of Lieutenant Quarles Harris. Lieutenant is not a military or any type of designation, but a first name. Young black man in Washington, D.C. He was caught with a lot of. He was caught with some. I shouldn't say a lot. With some of the information that was gained from the passport office break-in. Then you have to understand the passport office break-in took place by a computer. Some the passports of Obama, Clinton, and McCain were affected. But what people are not being told is that break-in also included the removal of identity information from other files. So it wasn't just the three. It happened to other passport office employees, it happened to other passport holders in the same file, the same server, I should say. Okay, so what happened was that information, the identity information, was taken from other passports, not the John McCain's or Obama's or Clinton's, because obviously they'd be very recognized, but the John Smith and the Jane Doe's, that information was taken for identity theft. Lieutenant Corliss Harris got this information, was one of the people who got this information to, for example, steal or use credit card to open accounts, to get cash advances and what have you. He was one of the main people that was caught. So he was ultimately the Washington, D.C. police who opened a file on this after the FBI and others got involved in this investigation. The D.C. police, the Metro police, the detectives were hitting this from a different direction. So they grabbed Harris and said, all right, you're going to cooperate with us. Harris said, okay, for a plea deal, I will. And the day before he was going to talk to authorities, he was shot in the head in Washington, D.C. And this, once again, this goes back to Brennan. What else goes back? When I say it goes back to Brennan, it goes back to the Passport Office break-in analysis corporation operated by Brennan. So, okay, so it's like 3 or 4 degrees separation. But the other part of the equation is the film Innocence of Muslims. Analysis Corporation, or I should say News Politics Now, and the various the various other parts of News Politics Now, which is a YouTube channel, shares the same IP address as the Analysis Corporation in Langley, Virginia, which, so you can say, wait a minute, the Innocence of Muslims, this film that reportedly ignited the Middle East, has a connection to the same server used by Analysis Corporation that was used to break into the passport office that is connected to John Brennan.
Right. We're going back to...
Which really, it makes your head spin.
Yeah. We're going back to, was he elected or nominated for the CIA position or promised to be able to continue serving in a higher government office as long as, he did these favors? Is that the reason he's there? That's a question we need to ask.
Right. So I didn't want to go off on a rabbit trail here, but look, I think that we need to be connecting these dots because Brennan has not been...
Right, he's not been honest, and we got to dig more into him. And folks, just to let you know, somebody mentioned play a commercial or play something when we're off air. We lost all control of the ability to put anybody on or off air or play anything because whatever's going on are the...
All right, folks, we're back. I want to apologize for this. Once again, it seems like an amateur hour, but it's not. It's we are, in fact, we've drawn the ire, apparently, of people with respect to what we've written, what we're talking about, and I've talked to others during the course of the day who have said that this would be taking place. So we apologize for this, but just hang with us. We're going to get this thing taken care of right quick. Now, or at least, when I say take care of this, or at least continue our redundancy, you notice that once we literally switched countries, if you will, for our broadcast, it took a little bit longer, but ultimately we were kicked off from there as well. So
yeah, and just want to let you guys know, for all the times that I've spent here in this office and studio, to see the internet acting up the way it is right now is definitely something that doesn't happen rarely ever. I've never seen it cut off so often in a short period of time. So we'll just pray about it, but we're going to go to a commercial break. We reached the end of the first hour, and we haven't even gotten into a lot of the important news. The DHS insider, Obama's cyber warriors, and preparing for the collapse. We're going to get into what was said in this interview. It's posted at HomelandSecurityUS.com, as well as give you some information.
CanadaFreePress.com too.
Yeah, and give you some information that also shows you a connection between this and some government contracting companies that have job postings for this type of work. So stay with us. We're up against the top of the hour break. We'll be back after a few short minutes. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Wednesday, February 6, 2013.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com, or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Folks, I want to tell you too, speaking about Freeze Dry Guy, if you haven't checked out their February special, you've got a week to do so, well, 8 days to do so, through the 14th of February. 2 great items for your grab-and-go bag. You've got chicken with rice, long-range patrol ration entrees, 100% freeze-dried foods, USA manufactured, only the finest ingredients, and also, and I've got to try these, man, real ice cream, no refrigeration required. It's an ice cream dessert. You can eat it dry. It's supposedly very delicious. One case. Normally $200, $159 for Hagmann and Hagmann listeners. Check out the Freeze Dry Guy. That's freezedryguy.com. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on the Freeze Dry Guy link, and it'll take you right to his website. Also, folks, if you haven't done so, you've got to check out Granlund Firearms. It's GranlundofFirearms.com. If you're up in British Columbia, beautiful British Columbia, certainly you can walk in to Campbell's River, the Granlund Firearms in Campbell's River, British Columbia. Check out their supply. If you're a hunter, a survivalist, they've got everything that you might need. And one of my favorites, too, is a book. And I'm not a big, I don't hunt, and I'm not a real big fan of hunting, but I like outdoor adventure kind of things. Carl Granlund wrote a great book. It's a fantastic book, actually. Treed Beyond the River, second edition. They've got a bunch of new hunting stories and pictures. It's about cougar hunting on the Vancouver Island. Again, that's by Carl Granlund. But do me a favor. Click on the link. Visit their website if you can't visit them in person. Sign their guest book. Tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you, and take a look at their inventory, their news items. They're changing their website around quite a bit and making a lot of good additions. So that's GranlundFirearms.com. Tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Wednesday, February 6, 2013 edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We had some sound issues, kept getting cut off from our own broadcast in the first hour when we were talking about Brennan's background, the U.S. State Department admitting the government let Muttalib, the underwear bomber, on the plane in 2009, and talking about these illegal drone strikes. So for those of you who did miss the first hour, I'm glad you're here now. And go back and catch that first hour, and don't worry about the sound issues. We're obviously not off the air forever, but it is frustrating to go through things like this night after night. No matter where we broadcast from, I broadcast from, it doesn't
from
seem
an
to
underground
matter.
bunker inside, deep inside FEMA Region 5. But you know what, Joe? Let me just say this: you had found some interesting job. Cybersecurity.
Yeah. Warriors wanted. Okay. This is from Raytheon.
I didn't even see that.
Okay, and what I'll do is I'll post this in the chat. But now Raytheon is hiring and looking for. President Obama recently announced that cybersecurity is one of the country's most urgent national security priorities. Raytheon is answering that call by hiring more cyber warriors this year to help fight the digital cyber war. Raytheon cyber warriors play offense and defense, and how the adversary thinks and can adapt to their perspective. They understand the real engineering beneath the interfaces. They also can design and create new software, as well as reserve engineer, analyze software and hardware created by someone else. Raytheon has more than 250 positions open for engineers, information security professionals, and business development managers. Some of the places that they want and locations they need filled are in Fort Meade, in Melbourne, Florida, in Northern Virginia, in Garland, Texas. Possible job descriptions include information operation, information assurance, test engineers, network and security engineers, cyber and information security, information and data collection management. Also, this one found to be rather oddly named. Where is it here? Media sanitation specialist. Media sanitation specialist. And this was posted, let me see if I can find a date here. No, I can't, but I'll post this link in the chat room for you guys, and you'll see it for yourself. Now, this is just one article of many that talk about in great detail the cybersecurity aspect of Obama's administration and their agenda to combat any opposition to their agenda on the internet with these cybersecurity people. And we wonder where all the people come we call trolls in the chat room or in other internet platforms and forums where you see really coordinated attacks at some times and people spousing off viewpoints that have no logic or common sense and just attack the messenger rather than I can't hear you, no. We are not connected through Skype, just the phone system, so...
The reason I was saying is we could use both. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Yeah, the Raytheon, and this is something that was pointed out to me earlier, Raytheon did make this job announcement. Do we have any idea when they did that?
No, I said, let me look at the URL. I'll have to go through...
Because I'd be curious as to the date, if it was close to the inauguration date. I'm not exactly certain. But by the way, if you could do this, if you could put the hard-wired connection that you've got, the portable hardwired connection on hold, or muted, I shouldn't say on hold, but muted, and then activate your headset, I think what we can do is we can have a redundant system build up through the sound system here. You know what I'm talking about? If you could mute what you got.
Yep.
And then you...
Doing it now.
All right. But yeah, folks, a very interesting thing that Joe found was that Raytheon job solicitation for these. All right. You just sorry about that. But for cyber warriors. Very interesting job solicitation. So what I'm thinking here is, could it be that Raytheon is actually operating as perhaps like a I don't know, what would you call it, like a go-between?
Yeah.
For this.
And this is not including what we have under the umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security.
No, of course not. So this could be a larger program than what we're talking about. And just so people are clear on this, we're talking about the article that appeared on CanadaFreePress.com and HomelandSecurityUS.com. And folks, I'd urge everyone, please, just share it on Facebook and also like it on CFP, Facebook-wise, and also on HomelandSecurityUS.com to increase the exposure, for nothing else. But 3,575. You heard me talk about this initially when Steve Quayle was on with Greg Evenson, and also this week. But what we've got is what my source saw was a white binder with the Obama logo on the front, with the subheading.
Was it wrapped in an Obama flag?
Yeah, really. It's you have to kind of chuckle at some of these things because otherwise you'll end up crying. But it had, and the truth will set you free, or the truth will set you free as a subheading. And motivational quotes within the pages of the book, and a listing of all of the websites, or not all, but a lot of websites that are conservative or Christian, and you just can't make this up. I mean, really, you cannot make this up. And so we have over 3,500 people, almost 3,600 people who are engaged. And by the way, if each one of those people, Joe, had like 10 aliases, that's like 35,000.
No, I know, it's a lot.
I mean, it would be exponentially more, obviously.
I have a Facebook account.
3,500.
That differs from my real name, and it was for private investigation work. A lot of people put things on Facebook, pictures on Facebook,
right,
open to the public, where they are better off leaving off, especially when you're involved in certain criminal cases or court cases.
Right.
That people post. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing. Just to give you an example. So somebody will just say a domestic case, a husband and wife, which is not something we work normally. This is an example, not a real story. But the guy, wife hires us, says her husband's cheating, he denies it, and he posts a picture of himself out with his girlfriend on Facebook.
And people do that all the time. And they, I don't know if it's hubris or I can get away with it, the thought process or whatever it is. But there's a tendency, and I'm wondering, too, if this is not something that's been cultivated among today's generation, but a tendency for people to put more about themselves online than they would normally do face-to-face. Do you think? I mean, I don't know, is the feeling or appearance of distance because you're talking to a machine or you're typing into a computer? Could that be something that people have they're less inhibited about? But anyway, the thing that really got to me is this: we're entering into a perfect storm here, and I said this on the Santilli program. And folks, if you go to I think the link is off of our front page to the program today. If you go to that program, what I talked about is pretty much what Joe and I have been talking about for the last couple of days. This perfect storm, economic collapse followed by or in conjunction with this social chaos, this racial chaos which is being fomented.
I was going to say this, I don't know if you can hear it, the wind noise.
Right. It's
what
almost you know what, it's
Are we outside?
No, but it's almost like somebody has an open line, if you will. I don't know if our listeners can hear it, but what are we going to do?
And I'm muted over here.
Yeah, I'm muted here, so.
Well, at least there's a machine gun fire like the other night.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But the purpose of these particular cyber warriors is to infiltrate web forums, collect screen names, avatars, and posters, taglines, in an attempt to resolve the actual identities with the posters. And that is something that's a little bit disturbing when you think about it. But you know what? We're beyond that. We're beyond the pale here. I think we've pretty much. If you're online, you're not anonymous. You're known. Okay, so even if you're using proxies, they've got certainly ways to identify you. But once again, we're talking about an economic collapse, and people. And I addressed this on the Santilli show today. When are things going to happen? Well, we don't know. Plans change. The objectives don't, but plans change, and they're very fluid. So the only thing we can say is just keep your eyes open, and the more people that become aware of the plans, the more difficult it is for these people to really carry out their duties without molestation. And I think we can buy some time. And if we can buy some time, we can help some people and save some souls in the meantime, perhaps, or at least guide them in the right direction. Now that's what I wanted to say on the DHS contact. But the last thing I wanted to say is, there was a talk. Once again, I mentioned this with Steve Quayle. Joe and I talked about it. The program with Steve Quayle's financial source, known only as V. That's a very important program that did cause a stir at DHS, and I think we really should go through that program once again, because I think that there's a lot of information in that program that would be very worth it. So to go back over. And I think one of the things that he said was the European markets, Joe.
Yeah.
Was it the Japanese yen, I think, at the
Japanese. He listed a series of events, I think, in chronological order, the way he reported on it. And now the wind sound is gone, thank goodness.
Yeah.
We're going to have to go back through that interview. I'm going to have to go back through the interview.
And I believe it was July 11th, 2013, and that's available through our archives. If you go to
July 11th, January 11th.
January 11th.
Yeah.
Just go to the right-hand side of our homepage, click on the RSS feed, and there you will have the entire listing of all our programs from 2011.
A couple other news pieces I want to hit before I play this Joe Scarborough clip, and we're going to go to phone calls and some other things for the rest of the show. But this from the Independent UK. It's just amazing how LIBOR fixing can make you that much money. Traders gleefully admitting rate fixing was a cartel. RBS traders gleefully admitted LIBOR setting had become a cartel as another raft, it says raft, of damning emails. I think they mean draft.
No,
draft.
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Of damning emails, the reputation of the industry gave it the industry a fresh beating today. Senior yen UK traders, yes.
All right.
Senior yen traders said the practice was getting sick or nuts. And in August 2007, One said, "It's just amazing how LIBOR fixing can make you that much money." Another exchange in December 2007 had one trader complaining about his high LIBOR, LIBOR-esque, keep ours low if possible, and threatening to send the boys around to rival banks. These email exchanges between derivative traders and LIBOR submitters in 2009 had one trader admitting, "I'm like a whore's drawer," as he passed the submitter to lower the LIBOR fixing. Another Swiss franc trader in December 2008, 2 months after RBS was bailed out with billions from taxpayers, offered some sushi rolls from yesterday in return for a low submission of 6 months LIBOR. Another offered to make love to a colleague. But anyway, this is all corruption. The people involved in the LIBOR scandal have been now revealed in their own emails with their own words to be knowingly and purposefully rigging the market, intimidating and threatening rival banks and people who are and were against what they were doing and going to expose them.
All right.
And now we go back to the CNBC death, the death of CNBC kids, and the wife witnessed the nanny do it, apparently. First, she said she walked in and all three were on the ground, 2 kids and a nanny. 2 kids were stabbed, and the nanny had her throat cut.
Right.
Then she changed her story and said that she saw the nanny cut her own throat, and her kids were lying there when she came in. But that was the family of a CNBC executive who ran a story about a $43 trillion lawsuit against the Federal Reserve of the U.S. and other banks, and it named politicians and involved the LIBOR scandal. And that article was removed within hours. His kids were dead within hours, and that was that.
All right. Just to help people out here, because it's a little bit difficult, I know, to keep up and to really kind of follow things. First of all, what you were referring to, Joe, is the incident of the Krim, that's K-R-I-M, Krim children. Mr. Krim was a CNBC executive. His children were murdered one day after CNBC reported on a $43 trillion, and I'm using this word, it's their word, not mine, bankster lawsuit. Now, according to the police, the nanny stabbed herself upon the mother's arrival. Okay?
Cut her own throat.
Right. Now, you can, folks, if you want to do the research on this, you can do it yourself. And our hearts go out to the victims of all this violence. But the Krim children were the children of this CNBC executive who was responsible for putting up the $43 trillion bankster lawsuit involving the Spire Law Group. They were the plaintiffs. Now, that's what you were talking about. Now, let's go back just really quick to make sure everyone's on board with this. What's LIBOR, and why should you care? Well, LIBOR is the London Interbank Offered Rate. That's an acronym. LIBOR is an acronym for the London Interbank Offered Rate. And that's the average rate established every day. I think it's like around 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure, at some point, London time. And it's 11:30 a.m. London time every single day. All interest rates are calculated through all currencies in this area of London. And remember, folks, we were talking about, what happens when the economy and the dollar collapses? Who's going to step in? Well, the British Empire. There's 1 square mile in London that holds all the banks and all the power in London. Well, at the heart of this is the London Interbank Offered Rate Agency, and that's what this British Bankers Association, LIBOR, is. So that's what LIBOR is. So, by the way, if you bought a car in the last week, or if you're going to buy a car in the next week, or a house, or your credit card, LIBOR sets the rates. Now, the big scandal was the manipulation of the rates so the banksters, if you will, could make more money on people like you and I. And that blew up, and people were talking, and in part because of the WikiLeaks scandal, it came to pass. So when people mention, well, LIBOR scandal, now you know what it is. LIBOR, it's the London interbank offered rate. It's out of London, 11:30 every day. It's set 11:30 London time. It's set, and it sets interest rates around the world. And then the murder of the Krim children was responsible, or happened as a result of the CNBC executive putting up the scandal or the lawsuit.
$43 trillion lawsuit.
That's correct. So that's
which
how
was
that
removed
connects.
right away. Yeah.
Which was removed, right? That's correct. And,
all right.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that clear.
All right. What we're going to do here is hit a couple pieces of news, play this audio, then take your calls for the rest of this hour, and go on to your calls and news for the third and final hour. All right. This, I don't know if you read it. I sent it to you.
I did.
But Obama gives foreign corps new police powers in the United States.
And we need, Joe, this is one of the most important things I think you've sent to me ever.
A little discussed executive order from President Obama is giving foreign cops new police powers in the United States by exempting them from such compliance with the Freedom of Information Act is raising an alarm among contenders who say Interpol already had most of the same privileges as diplomats. At David Horowitz's newsreel, Michael Van der Galen said the issue is Obama's expansion of President Ronald Reagan's order from 1983 originally granted those diplomatic privileges.
Okay, now stop right there, because what Reagan did was very simply gave Interpol the ability it actually opened the interface between our domestic police agencies and Interpol, which is the international police agencies. Okay, and it at the time Reagan did this back in '83, those diplomatic privileges came with a certain number of very limited powers. So Reagan didn't just give carte blanche. Now, what this does, it gives carte blanche by Obama to foreign police powers in the United States. That said, go ahead.
Yeah, it goes on to say through the Reagan's order carried a certain exemptions requiring Interpol operations to be subject to several U.S. laws, such as the FOIA law,
Freedom of Information Act, right?
Obama, however, removed those restrictions during his December 16th executive order 12425, which I have in my don't have in my hand.
Well,
this is the wrong one.
It doesn't matter because
this is
okay. So yeah, actually, Interpol is operating in the United States, and it has been operating in the United States by a mutual aid or mutual agreement. And Reagan opened this up in '83 with restrictions, and what Obama did on December 16th of last year, he signed Executive Order 12425 that basically removed those exemptions and said, you know what, do what you will in this country, because we're okay with it, and all the safeguards for government abuse are gone.
Yeah, this executive order is Executive Order 12425, designating Interpol as a public international organization entitled to enjoy certain privileges, exemptions, and immunities by the authority vested in me as the President, by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, including Section 1 of the International Organization Immunities Act, in order to extend the appropriate privileges, exemptions, and immunities to the International Criminal Police Organization.
Right. He has effectively removed all limitations. So folks understand what this happened. So essentially, not that you would ever run into this, a normal person would never run into this, but this is one of the most important things, because what this does is lays the groundwork for foreign entities, foreign law enforcement groups come into the United States and basically arrest you on American soil. That was never, and people will say, well, wait, that's not what it says. Well, that's what it means. Because if you go back to the Section 2C, Section 3, Section 4, Section 5, 6, and so on of the Act that Reagan signed, you'll see the limitations and the immunities that were lifted or the immunities that were put into place by this particular executive order. So the bottom line is this. Interpol now can come in here and do their dance on the American public, and it's part of the globalization process by Obama. It's globalization. That's what it is, globalization. Yes, it is. And I say that now, how many people have heard this on the evening news? I dare say not too many. Foreign cops now have police powers inside the United States. I don't know of anyone talking about this. This has been in place now for a month and a half. No one said a word to it.
Not only that, this has been in place for...
Well, since 83, but...
Since December 16, 2009.
Oh, wait a minute, 2009. My mistake. I thought it was last year.
From what I... No, this is, 2009. At least the link I found. And it could have been updated since then, December 17, 2009. And it also says in the article that this came on December 16th. So I think we're looking at the right one. Yeah.
Wait, let's be clear before we move on here, because I'm looking at this, and mine says December. Okay, I'm looking at.
No, I'm reading from the website that is listing the EO.
Okay,
and it is the exact text as what I am reading. It is Executive Order 13524.
Okay, and this is December 17th, 2009.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm looking at the UK site that says December 16th, 2012.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to read this from the UN Dispatch, which is a blog on the United Nations. Mark Leon Goldberg, who explained he worked at Interpol's headquarters in France in 2002, said there isn't much danger of Interpol agents whisking Americans off to jail, but he confirmed as to the specific reason why Obama would decide last week to extend to Interpol the same suite of diplomatic privileges that are typically accorded to international organizations. He said, I don't have a good answer for that. My sense is that it probably has something to do with the accessibility of Interpol's secure criminal databases for stolen passports or things like that. But the Obama critics were not convinced. By this executive order, Obama has conferred diplomatic immunity upon Interpol, exemption from being subject to search and seizure by law enforcement, exemption from U.S. taxes, and immunity from Freedom of Information Act requests, etc. Wow. Does Interpol have a file on Obama or his association? It's a question that needs to be asked.
Okay, that's a good question. And just to clear it up, folks, okay, this was indeed December of 2009. The whitehouse.gov site confirms it is December of 2009. There are two websites that say December of 13, one being in the UK, another one being here in the United States. I don't know why, but this can be traced back to a Bob Owens article saying that Obama surrenders U.S. sovereignty dated back in 2009. So regardless, the fact of the matter is we just found a nugget here that should have made a bigger splash in 2009 that didn't apparently, and here we are. So now we've just got to keep our eyes on what's taking place, because this does fit in. And by the way, why would this pop up as December 13, 2013, or December 2012? I don't get this. So maybe there's something more to this than we're seeing. But there we go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on.
We have international news. Iran. Did you see the stories on Iran?
Well,
first off,
yes.
Ahmadinejad seeks strategic access with Egypt. President Ahmadinejad, on his first visit to Cairo by an Iranian leader in more than 3 decades, called for the strategic alliance with Egypt and said he had offered the cash-strapped Arab state a loan, but drew a cool response. Ahmadinejad said outside forces were trying to prevent a rapid approachment between the Middle East's two most populous nations. What was that word? Did I ruin that?
No, I didn't even see that. I'm not looking at the same thing you're looking at.
No, okay. Anyway, he goes on to say, at odds since Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution and Egypt's signing of a peace treaty with Israel in the same year, we must all understand that the only option is to set up this alliance because it is in the interest of the Egyptians and the Iranian people and other nations of the region. The official MENA news agency quoted him in remarks to Egypt journalists published on Wednesday. The two countries have not restored diplomatic ties since Egypt overthrew its long-term leader, Hosni Mubarak, in 2011, but its first Islamist president, Morsi, gave Ahmadinejad a red carpet welcome on Tuesday to the Summit of Islamic Nations. And it goes on to say, there are those striving to prevent these two great countries from coming together despite the fact that the region's problems requiring this meeting, especially the Palestinian question, Ahmadinejad said. Egyptian foreign ministers played down the significance of the visit. Also, there was video where a Turkish cameraman to show throw a shoe at Ahmadinejad while he was speaking.
Remember when that happened with George Bush? You know, well, I mean, the significance is it's significant, but does it mean anything? Well, yeah, it means no. It really, in the scheme of things, it doesn't. But what we have to do is take a couple of steps back and take a look at what's going on in Egypt, take a look at what's going on in Iran. And the more information we're getting about Iran is the fact that Iran is taking a back seat to what's taking place in Syria. Israel has bombed, and you recalled this story from last week. Israel bombed a convoy that they thought had chemical weapons. They bombed the Syrian convoy. Okay, everything is pointing to Syria. And Syria and Iran have a pact now, as we had talked about earlier, a mutual aid pact.
And what we need to be looking at are the countries in the Middle East that are not being messed with Western influences, which are not in revolution. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey. Why?
Because, and this is important because Saudi Arabia is, and if you haven't heard this before, remember everything that's going on in the Middle East, Arab Spring, Tunisia revolt, Egypt, to Libya. This is all Saudi architecture. The Saudi Arabians are. This is a Saudi. This is the Saudi game plan here. They are using American military assets and American goodwill in the blood of our men and women in the Middle East to advance their agenda. Why? Well, it goes back to Desert Storm. It goes back to the first Gulf War. What happened to the Saudi oil wells in Kuwait and other places? The Saudi-owned and operated oil wells, they were damaged. And what has happened is it has limited their lifespan. So Saudi Arabia is looking for oil. And when you look at Libya, if you study Libya, where is the most oil in Libya located? Libya is almost two countries. If you would split it down the middle, up and down, north and south, okay, the west has much less oil than the east. Benghazi is located in the east. The oil wells that the Saudis are interested in are located in East Libya. This is a play for oil by the Saudis, in part. I mean, this is part of it. It's not the whole thing, but it's part of it. A lot of the oil is going to, or a lot of the oil wells are going to Saudi Arabia. So we are doing the bidding for Saudi Arabia. Benghazi is not just about arms shipments. It's about the agenda of Saudi Arabia. It's about the oil. It's about the energy. And Russia's upset, the way they're upset, is not just about the upsetting, taking Assad out of the picture. It's about the free flow of oil from Russia, to and from Russia. And that's what we have to look at in Turkey. So this is
the controlling of the resources, the shaping of the globalization. So they do need strongholds there. They do need regions over there. Obviously, these regions are more closely allied with the the military-industrial complex, New World Order, whatever you call it.
Very much, yeah.
Because we see their power to overthrow nations. I mean, huge nations. Egypt is a big nation. Syria. I mean, these were strong nations, but they had, they were overthrown by not people of their own country, but these apparent anti-American Islamists, radical jihadists that have been moved, funded by the U.S. and British, and moved from country to country for each revolution.
Right. Now, folks, if you want to know kind of how things, and this is so important, I really believe this, if you remember that statement, there's nothing new under the sun. Remember 1953? Probably not. I mean, but if you happen to remember 1953, or if you studied the Iranian coup of 1953, what you're seeing right now taking place in many countries in the Middle East, the 1953 Iranian coup was really is the template for what's taking place. The head of Iran, the democratically elected head of Iran, the prime minister, Mossadegh, was overthrown in a coup attempt that was orchestrated by the CIA, via, shall I say, intelligence agencies of Great Britain. Look up Operation Boot, like a shoe you would wear, Operation Boot, or look up the name TP Ajax, like toilet paper Ajax Project, TP Ajax Project. You will find ample amount of information about how the coup to install the Shah back then was done. And it was done because of Iran's oil industry. See, this is a lot of this is about oil. And we have to look back in history, because if we forget history, we're doomed to repeat it, and we're repeating it right now. So, once again, if you really want to know the origins of Arab Spring and the CIA involvement, and even the British involvement, because, folks, one little thing that you might not know, that building in Benghazi, if not owned by, it had a use by the UK. The United States might not have owned that. I'm getting reports where the UK might actually have owned that CIA-used compound, annex, whatever you want to call it.
No, it makes no difference really in the scheme of things. When
it does, only to the extent that it shows you the
interconnectivity,
right, the globalization.
Yeah.
Correct.
This piece of news was big news on Drudge this morning as a headline there for most of the morning. Ahmadinejad, Iran already a nuclear state, but has no intention of launching attack on Israel. In an interview with Al-Aram on eve of Islamic Summit Conference in Cairo, Iranian president also says his country opposes outside intervention in Syria. Iranian President Ahmadinejad said that while Iran is already a nuclear state, it has no intention of attacking Israel. Ahmadinejad was interviewed on the eve of his visit to Cairo, where he will attend the 12th Islamic Summit conferences due to the open there on Wednesday. Before his trip, he gave a long interview to the editor-in-chief of Egypt's newspaper, Al-Haram. Although Al-Haram ran the entire interview, only its print edition excerpts appeared on Egyptian websites. Ahmadinejad said that the world must now treat Iran as a nuclear country. They want Iran to go back to what it was in the past, but they won't succeed. They assume we'll give in to pressure. Such thoughts are misguided. We're already an industrial and nuclear country, a country has conquered space, a country that has conquered space. For years we have been thinking about sending a human being into space, and we will do that with Allah's help. We must ensure development and growth and bring them to pass, and the world must acknowledge our progress, he said, adding that the best solution was cooperation with Iran for the world. So he's saying they are a nuclear state, and they are. They have nuclear plants that are used for power. Now the question is, do they have the capabilities of nuclear weaponry? Well, a lot of people are divided on this. There's no evidence we've seen that says, here's the proof. Iran has weapon-grade plutonium or uranium or
but you know what? I believe that if you want proof, the only proof that's going to exist is going to be in the form of a mushroom cloud somewhere.
Well, we see the scientists being murdered. We see their facilities.
Really disclosed. Doing that.
The real information of these facilities aren't disclosed. The usefulness or what was in them or why they were bombed or sabotaged. We're seeing their facilities being blown up. We're seeing their facilities being sabotaged. We're seeing their sanctions have been put on them by the U.S. But the real question is, and the same thing goes for North Korea, are they capable?
Well, North Korea is a little bit different because of their kind of geographical irrelevance. I mean, because China too.
I don't doubt that there one day, we need to focus on Syria and what's going on in the Middle East. We see the alliances being formed between Russia, Iran, Syria, and some other nations. But what is important here is to look at some of this as propaganda. How long have they been pushing there's going to be a U.S.-Iranian war?
But even
and how long has this nuclear talk been going on?
Right, and
for years.
And exactly. But would you feel comfortable with a nuclear-armed Iran? I don't think anyone would. I know. Well, I understand the arguments on both sides.
Listen, let's look at the logic. When's the last time Iran's military went and invaded a country or dropped bombs or drones on another country?
Well, you had the Iran
threatened.
Okay, you make a great point because, and I'd like listeners to really kind of think about
this. We do this every day in multiple countries without authority from the countries or Congress or anyone.
But why? You know what? And I would pose this question to the listeners as you're driving or listening to this program, however you're listening to it. Think about this: America took out Iraq as part of a larger military initiative. My question is, why did we take out Iraq, especially when they were keeping Iran busy? Why Iraq? Especially when they were keeping Iran busy. Yes, I said it twice.
And I could play the clips of George Bush being asked after launching the Iraq invasion, well, what did Iraq have to do with 9/11? Nothing.
Right. Now, and people, and this is something, and folks, let me just really say that I apologize for my initial stance on this, because my thinking has evolved with true research and investigation and asking questions. But remember Salman Pak? I don't know how many people have heard of that location in Iraq. Salman Pak, Salmanpak, was a city was a location in Iraq that had a mock-up of I believe it was a 747 or maybe a 737, where there were training exercises being held there. Okay, now that was one of the reasons why we, in addition to, of course, that almost unforgettable picture of Colin Powell holding that little vial of what he said was anthrax in the United Nations and the weapons of mass destruction. Did Iraq have WMDs? Yes, there were WMDs that were actually moved into the Bekaa Valley in Syria. But even that and the existence of Salman Pak certainly did not warrant an assault against Iraq. My question, in the larger sense, is: did we take out Iraq to empower or embolden Iran and allow them to advance their nuclear capabilities? And why did we allow the Pakistani godfather of the nuclear bomb, who, by the way, is a hero of Pakistan, why did we allow him to continue his operations directly in front of the CIA, directly right in front of the CIA's nose. I'm trying to, as I'm talking here, I'm trying to think of the name of that individual, the godfather of the Pakistani nuclear bomb. I'm not in the chat room, so I was going to say something can help me out, but it's an amazing thing. Here we have Pakistan giving secrets to all countries with the approval of the Bush administration, and before that, the Clinton administration. Iran was one of the benefactors of this, and China provided Iran with the technology as well as Russia provided Iran with the technology. So, and yet we hit Iraq and therefore emboldened Iran. Where's the sense in all this? Can anyone make any sense of all this? And that's really, to me, that Joe, and I just don't know.
Yeah, no, it's hard to make sense of this. What I want to do, if it's all right with you, we'll take out up until the break the Scarborough.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a 10-minute clip. I'm not sure we'll have to play the whole thing, but it's 10 minutes of the break.
I thought it was pretty interesting, just to lead up to Scarborough. If you have followed Scarborough's constant praise and support, along with, and don't forget, who is his sidekick?
Mika Brzezinski, which is the big new Brzezinski's daughter.
Now, you've got to understand there's influence there. There must be influence there to the Scarborough Report, this global influence. So think about that as you listen to this clip.
Right. I mean, it's interesting to see all the pro-Obama backers where they stick up for him in every other issue that is illegal and unconstitutional. Why are they coming together today to speak out against it or yesterday?
My question is, would Mika's father approve, and I'm sure that he's got some, not necessarily editorial control, but some sort of influence.
They got to give the public a glimmer of that they're making a difference. They got to let the public know that, maybe give them a little crumb to chew on while they're busy formulating a more sinister program over,
So is this
it's like the TSA saying they're taking all naked body scanners out. Well, meanwhile, they're implementing molecular DNA scanning, much more intrusive secret X-ray. But anyway, let's go to this audio from Joe Scarborough.
All right.
No, just, we find out that the United States government now thinks it has the right to kill American citizens without due process or without probable cause or without any evidence or
economic calamity at hand.
By the way, I want to get to all the news stories. I got to ask Mark McKinnon, though, this story. Okay. So Barack Obama, he'll sign like some regulation that will say that a federal agent can go pick up a tumbleweed off the side of the road in a deserted road somewhere in Middle America. And Republicans will stream to the floor and they'll scream, "Tonight, freedom was destroyed." Tonight, how many times have you heard that? Yep. Barack Obama has destroyed freedom. Tonight, Obamacare. They say Barack Obama has destroyed tonight. Freedom died. That's what we always hear from these Republicans in the House. And here you have something truly chilling. Here you have the United States government saying, we can kill you, American citizen. You have no constitutional right to a jury by your peers. You have no constitutional right even to probable cause or to due process. You have no right to a lawyer. You have no right to counsel. You have no right to anything. If we suspect you, just suspect you without evidence that you were thinking about committing an act against the United States of America, we can kill you. Yeah. And there are no checks and there are no balances. We can kill you. We can pick you out of a list and drop a bomb on you. We can kill you. Not only can we kill you, we can then kill your 16-year-old son, who's not even affiliated with Al-Qaeda. And then we can blame it on the father for us having to kill the son. Now, that seems to me to be something Republicans might perhaps be concerned about, go to the floor about and talk about. And they talk about all these other lunatic, insane things where they say, oh, freedom's dying tonight. No, this is a great example of where the Constitution is being stretched well beyond its limits.
Well, forget Republicans. How about liberals and Democrats? I mean, can you imagine George W. Bush proposed this idea?
I mean, that's obvious.
Now, I'm a little contrarian on this with you. I actually agree with the policy. I think it's a good idea.
You think it's okay to kill Americans without probable cause?
In thinking about the threats against us and the Machiavellian plots, I'm willing to err on the side of giving government a little bit of latitude.
Wait. Americans don't have a constitution. This kid, the 16-year-old kid, goes out to a restaurant and he gets killed.
I understand.
Because of his father.
I'm sure I'm in the minority at this table. Well, I may be in America.
That causes you no concern?
As I said,
constitutionally,
really?
I err on the side of giving the government latitude on this one.
Wow. Okay.
We have Katty Kay with us as well from Washington. I didn't get to do the intro, so I didn't know. Katty, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Mika.
Good. Good. You want to chime in on drones? Are you with Mark McKinnon?
I think, there has to be a whole lot more open discussion of the kind that we tried to raise a couple of years ago. Roy Blunt tried to raise it in the Petraeus hearings and was sort of smacked down by Dianne Feinstein. This is an issue of national intelligence. But you know what? Now it's out there so much that the secrecy element has gone, and I think there has to be a real discussion both about the constitutionality, particularly when it comes to American citizens, but also the wider ramifications of whether this is actually serving our national security cause. Because whilst you're taking out some al-Qaeda leaders, you're causing huge amounts of resentments in some of these areas and possibly fueling the next generation of militants in places like Yemen, in the Pakistani borders. If we extend it into Somalia or even into Mali, there are a whole lot of people that are going to feel extremely angry about missiles raining out of the sky and taking down people who are not always associated with terrorists. There's an extremely good story, an example of this in the New York Times this morning, of an imam who spoke out against al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda operatives came to speak to him, and as they were speaking under a tree, in fact, to threaten him, and as they were speaking under a tree, missiles came down and took them out. Now, what does that do in that community in terms of a sense of what America is doing, anger towards America, and the fueling of more people who feel they want to join the cause of jihad?
And the probable cause, by the way, John Meacham, now is, and it really is, if you're a man between certain ages, and you are within the proximity of members who are suspected to be members of al-Qaeda, you are presumed guilty, and they kill you. You're in the kill zone.
And to be an imminent threat. So you're presumed to be that. The rule of law here, Katty and I always joke about how she feels about losing the colonies, and she's not happy. We appreciate it.
Still mad.
I don't think she's as grateful as she should be that we've allowed her to come back.
Exactly.
But this is one of the reasons we broke away from her crowd. Was that there were no.
I don't know where this is going. I'm struggling with this one.
That the rule of law could not simply be in the hands of a king and could not be arbitrarily applied. And that's precisely what this is in the hands of an American king.
And an American king that actually gets the list of people who he decides should be killed and who should not be killed. And the New York Times reports that he goes down that list. And there's so many things that are chilling here. I do got to say, Mika, again, just to follow up on what Mark McKinnon said, this is one of those times where you can't even say if George Bush were doing this. Because if George Bush were doing this, everything that was going on in Washington, D.C. would stop today.
Yes.
There would be congressional hearings called. There would be articles of impeachment. All of Washington, all of Manhattan, the entire press corps would stop and focus its attention on this unprecedented overreach, constitutional overreach.
Well, I think some of it will come out in the Brennan testimony, and that should be very, very interesting. I think we made the point yesterday that if this was happening in the Bush administration, people would be going crazy, especially in the sort of echo chamber. But I do think...
All right, that's sufficient. Go ahead and read that clip or that quote you have. I think that's important if you've got it handy.
Yeah, this is just speaking. This is where I'm reading out of the First Thessalonians chapter 5, and a listener passed this along to me, and I thought it was a good word for today. As we covered a lot of news, we should also cover our spiritual preparations just as much. But this chapter 5, but the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh down upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are children of the light and children of the day, and we are not of the night nor the darkness. Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For they that sleep, sleep in night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and the helmet, and for the hope of salvation. For God has not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by the Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. And it goes on to say...
There you go. I mean, that says enough.
Yeah, it goes on to say here, now we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly, comfort the feeble-minded, support the weak, be patient towards all men. See that none render evil for evil unto any man, but ever follow that which is good, both among yourselves and all. And it goes on, and then importantly, see that none render evil for evil unto any man.
And that goes back to the tolerance of evil being just completely evil by itself.
And go back to what Obama said, mocking the Bible, where he said the Sermon on the Mount was the most radical speech in the Bible given, and it wouldn't even pass it wouldn't even allow basically the Defense Department to operate because of the laws set there in place.
Well, and then his mocking of Leviticus and other Old Testament text readings back in 2009, I believe it was. So you've got a president. Now think about that in the context of his current drone policies and other policies, which
right.
he is. So you know what? Look at the Bible and look at the headlines and look at where we're at.
Right. But lastly, as we take our way out on break, comfort your hearts and grow in every good word and work. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Wednesday, February 6, 2013.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for this live broadcast of the 6th day of February 2013. We're always live, and we're always live here between 8 and 11 Eastern Time every weekday. Before we go further, I do want to hit something that I believe is extremely important. Joe and I were talking about this before the program. There's just so much news and so many things going on. We talked about the LIBOR issue, connected with the LIBOR issue, connected with the DHS insider story, and kind of a common thread among all of the news and things we should be watching right now is this. Do Wall Street insiders expect something very big to happen very soon? And here's the situation. We have corporate insiders dumping tons of shares of their own companies right now. Yeah. The question is this: why are some very large investors suddenly making these gigantic bets that the stock market's going to crash at some point in the next 60 days? Folks, remember us telling you, March, April. Now, we don't like to set dates because dates are fluid, objectives are solid.
Yeah, you can stick with the March, April. I don't know any time, but it is on a time period. There is a time frame.
Well, yeah,
and this article, just to back up what you were saying, numerous high-level insiders warn of a dangerous global currency war, such as current Bundes Bank,
Bunds Bank
President Jen Weizmann, St. Louis Federal Reserve President James Bullard, Russian central banker Alexia Yurklevia, European Central Bank Board member Bonnet Coyer, and Soros,
all of these people.
Yeah.
Look, corporate insiders have been exceedingly good at timing the market in recent years. If you look at the CNBC article, I'm not even sure when this was published. Sucker alert: insider selling surges after Dow 14,000 mark.
Well, yesterday we had that article from CNBC that talked about, the end of the...
Right. And what do they know that they're not telling us? And the answer is a lot, because there are indications, numerous indications, that the stock market is heading for a significant reset in the months ahead. Now we could call it a reset, or we could call it a crash, call it what you will. The market right now is nothing more than a whole bunch of computers just talking with each other and trading at lightning speed, at the speed of electrons, if you will. That's what's going on. But here's the problem. There are some significant, absolutely jaw-dropping bets against stocks, and their only payoff is going to be if there is a financial crash at some point in the next few months. Remember 9/11? Remember those stock trades before the 9/11? Or the bets before 9/11? Before 9/11?
Not only that, but the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld mentioned a $2.3 trillion that was missing from the...
That's right. We have the same... Right. Now, we've got the exact same conditions forming right now. You've got a recent purchase of 100,000 put options by some mystery investor. And this is referenced by Barron's columnist Stephen Sears. But someone had made a huge bet against the financials, EFT yesterday, the actually the ticker stock symbol XLF. It's got everybody in the. It's got everybody talking. They traded about 100,000 put options on the ETF, which the put option increases in value when the price of the underlying asset, in this case the ETF, goes down. But anyway, to put numbers in perspective, very few, just a handful of investors ever made trade more than 500. Very few investors ever traded more than 500 contracts. So if you look at it in perspective, somebody's trading 100,000 contracts as opposed to a normal 500 trade. That gets people tendency to look and say, what's going on here? So we've got a whole lot of bets that will be executed or have to be executed within the next 60 days that the stock market is going to take a huge hit.
Now, going back to our interview with Financial Insider V,
right.
As I stated, there were a number of trigger points, indicators he mentioned to look out for. First being Japan.
Yes.
And this article under Currency Wars goes on to say, here we are. Indeed, Japan's escalation of the currency war has caused leaders in the Eurozone, Norway, Sweden, and South Korea, as well as many other regions, to consider further devaluating their own currencies. And James Richard and Reggie Middleton think that Germany's demand for its gold is part of the currency war. And it's not just conservative voices such as the Journal slamming the currency wars. For example, former Secretary of Labor Robert Reich points out that a weak dollar makes everyone poorer, and any new jobs created by the policy of devaluation are low-wage jobs.
Well, okay. So what we've got, but let's put this all together here. What we've got are mystery bets out there, betting essentially that the stock market is going to collapse, or not collapse, but take a really huge hit in the next 60 days because these contracts are timed for the next 2 months. Which does, okay, so
we have central banks warring against each other, trying to hurt the rivals, and this kind of state of the world will bring every country to weaken their currencies to boost their own exports. One financial person, Mr. Weinstall, noted in 2010.
Right.
They talked about this in 2010, as an article I'm looking at from then, that refers to a direct line between China, its currency, its exports of lower-cost goods to the U.S., and the erosion of the middle class, and now soaring unemployment in the United States. But it says manufacturing has been bleeding jobs for decades, and that's because of these new globalist treaties we're engaged in, NAFTA, GATT,
right,
the World Trade Organization, and it goes on from there. Now we're trying to set up the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which we haven't really broken down yet, but what information I do have from that is that we are going to basically engage in the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. It is a top priority of Obama during his second term, and it will further weaken the United States industry, manufacturing, jobs, and the middle class even more.
Well, this is exactly what we're seeing right now. And if you want a good laugh, by the way, a lot of places will look to the Congressional Budget Office, which is supposed to be nonpartisan and accurate and what have you. But they issued a report just recently, the economic budget and economic outlook for 2013 to 2023, the next 10 years. And some of the things that the Congressional Budget Office believes are going to happen, and folks think about this, they feel that the government revenue as a percentage of GDP is going to rise. It's currently at 15.8%. We'll say 16%. It's going to rise 3% in the next 10 years. Okay, fine. But what's even worse, I mean, what's worse than that is the CBO believes that we're not going to have a single recession over the next decade. Everything is going to be fine, that inflation is going to stay about 2% over the next decade. Let me tell you something. If you've gone into the store to buy a jar of peanut butter, inflation has risen 30%, okay, because in reality what we're seeing here is inflation in the food, and that's where it's first going to be seen. We're seeing it in the food,
in the assets, in the except for the housing market, but yeah, you'll see the inflation first with smaller items, and people say Vicks vapor, a very common household item, is something to know, and also gold,
because of the petroleum content, by the way, in Vicks. But go on.
But how the price of gold has risen so much that, in the last couple of years, but if you go to other countries, it didn't change. Like I think Sweden was one of the countries where the price of gold did not change in reflection to their currency.
Right, and this is something, folks, that if you're struggling with this, as I have been, and numerous people that have emailed me have been, you think about this, gold, silver, should I keep my 401k or should I dump it and buy gold and silver? Well, just look at the gold and silver as a hedge against inflation, because you could take the same amount of gold today, or let's just say silver. If you take 1 ounce of silver, you can buy 10 gallons of gas today. That was the same 10 years ago, and it will be the same 10 years from now. So I guess what we're saying is this: if your 401k can't do that, personally, I would certainly not be in a 401k or any type of paper retirement account or whatever in a bank. If I had that, it would be. I'm not giving financial advice. If it were me, I just certainly wouldn't have it. I'd have it in some sort of precious metals. By the way, I'm getting emails, a lot of emails. Troy from the Christians United Broadcasting Network, we're getting a lot of complaints about wind, sound.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about this. I'm extremely frustrated.
Maybe we could shut the window.
I don't know, but
take the vacuum away from the mic.
But there is this sound. It's almost like a whooshing sound. People are complaining that it's very difficult to hear. So if we can somehow, if there's something that can be done.
Yeah, we're gonna call our buddy. We have that compressor. He's gonna come put on our mixer. We're gonna hook up those ribbon mics, and we have to get that done this week.
I don't know what else to do. I'm as frustrated as you folks, so I apologize for the people who are emailing saying this.
Sound technicians come in, fix the problem. We change nothing, but yet it changes, it seems. It seems to be more than just our equipment. We have too much high-tech equipment for this platform.
Apparently.
But anyway.
I just want to read a couple emails real briefly. Steve from Pittsburgh, PA, thank you. Steve, I know you're listening, my friend from Pittsburgh, PA, thank you. I know you called the Santilli Show today. I want to say God bless you for that. Thank you. I have not gotten your package. I'm sure it'll come in tomorrow. Steve just said this, very powerful show, and thank you for standing up for speaking for America. Steve said, I'm very pleased with the show. Hope you can have him on your show, our show. He mentions one thing, and I didn't talk to you about this, Joe, and I'll just mention this now. There's a person by the name of Dr. Judy Wood.
Yeah, I've heard of her.
Okay.
When we interviewed Richard Gage, and
I'm not sure
other people back then. Yeah, we did talk about it briefly, but
I'm not sure he's too enthused with Dr. Wood.
Yeah, he was. Last time I understood, he was skeptical of the findings, but I have not looked at what she has. I've heard about it. I know basically what it is, but
just to give our listeners and kind of an insight into Dr. Judy Wood. Dr. Judy Wood has a PhD in engineering. And she's the author of a book called Where Did the Towers Go? Now, this is a huge book. It's a hardcover book. It's like 600 pages with 860 diagrams and illustrations. It weighs like 5 pounds, okay? It's $50. This book, I asked, or I ordered this book, but she gets into the dustification of the towers. One thing, and the reason I'm mentioning, I'm mentioning this for a reason, how it applies today.
I heard you say that, talk about this on the Santilli show. Yeah. That was a good point.
One of the points she makes, just very briefly, is where are the toilets?
Yeah.
From the World Trade Center towers. Now, of course, there's more than that.
Oh yeah,
but she's talking about evidence of directed free evidence technology on 9/11. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up right now, and the reason I'm kind of connecting to this or talking about this, is because of Steve's email from Pittsburgh. People want to know the truth, and I think that there is so much more to this. We are attempting to get as much information about different theories about where the towers, what happened to the towers, what happened on 9/11, from a scientific point of view, from a crime scene point of view. And I just want to let you know that we're going to find out once we review this book. We'll see if she's available to come on for an interview to talk about her scientific findings. But and I just wanted to tell Steve that as well, because Steve was asking about that and saying that we almost stand tall and pray for the Lord to show us the way and how to save this country and the world. We do not need another war to make the bankers any more money. We must bring these people down. As sick as I am, and Steve is impaired, infirmed, and God bless him. He said, I'm willing to do more. Enough is enough. And I think it's time for men to put on their big boy pants. And I think a lot of people have that same feeling. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, and first and foremost, a real man, in my opinion, goes by the Lord's will. And I know we talk about that a lot, but a lot of people want to do or have, when you say manly, be manly, they think macho, tough, can beat up people, whatever.
Right.
But that's not what a man is. A man is somebody who takes care of himself and the people around him, family or neighbors or otherwise. A real man is somebody that's rare today, especially in the church, let alone outside of the church, somebody who's in the Lord. It is rare to find a genuine person, not just a man, but women too. And why I see so many young people that aren't married, or your age, when you were my age, you were married years before me.
See, I had you when I was like 12, which is why I look so good, right?
24, I think.
I don't know.
But
I'm not
22, 23, 24. That area. But so many today of those people in those age groups are, for the most part, playing video games in their parents' basements. You know what I mean?
And folks, what do you think about that, about the current generation, and about, do you think that the people the young people who get their news from the Colbert Report and the Daily Show, do you think that they're actually going to be an asset when things do go bad? But remember, even as I say that, remember that you listening to this show, you're going to be the go-to person when everything kind of starts to happen. It's going to be you listening to this program, who your family members are going to come to you and say, help me understand what's taking place or what's going on. So don't think for one moment that your investment of time into this program is being wasted or being squandered, because we need to stick together and we need to be there when people come to us. But anyway, one thing.
The post office.
Yes.
Got to mention this. They're going to end delivering mail on Saturdays. Their services will be open for going to your P.O. box or getting stamps.
One less day to get bills, right, folks?
Yeah, also one less day to receive important information. At a time when communications such as cell phones, computers, the different ways we interact with each other are easily compromised, people feel much safer sending letters.
Let me tell you, the fragility of our infrastructure that includes our cell phones, our computers, our internet connections, you see it was a perfect demonstration here during the show, the fragility of our infrastructure. And yes, hard copy documents hand carried by people in the postal service, and they're cutting this. This is what they're cutting. Now, I do believe that it's a good deal, 40-some cents to send a letter from New York City to Los Angeles, California. What a great deal. But it's based on volume, and it's based on efficiency. But what we see is not efficiency in the Postal Service right now. We're seeing a lot of graft.
No, and what this does it's a model for the country, for its moral, the way we are morally, the way we are, our infrastructure. Everything is crumbling. Our business is crumbling. Our economy is crumbling. Our industries are crumbling, whether government or private. Our roads are, except the cameras on the road, those are brand new. The cop cars on the roads writing your tickets, those are nice and new.
Well,
but everything else is being drained and sucked out of the American people. And what's their solution? They want to raise more taxes. This piece of information I wanted to get into, it is a alert from the RSOE map, and this is from today. It is a complex emergency in Syria. Outbursts of hepatitis A and other diseases spread by poor hygiene are now becoming problematic among Syrians displaced by the civil war. The World Health Organization said Tuesday it's one of at least four United Nations agencies seeking to add a new sense of urgency to the humanitarian crisis afflicting the country, further aggravating the health of the Syrians. The organization said is a breakdown in the delivery of safe water throughout the country, the closing of at least one-third of Syrians' public hospitals, and an exodus of doctors.
Imagine Syria being one big superdome during Katrina. That's what you're seeing.
Yeah, and it goes on to say the warning was delivered in a telephone briefing by Elizabeth Hoff, the health organization's representative in Damascus, the Syrian capital. It came a day after another United Nations organization, UNICEF, announced an ambiguous program to provide chlorination supplies to treat water for more than 10 million people, about half the population. Another indication of the magnitude of the water problem. Also, hepatitis A outbreak. It says a serious and highly contagious liver disease that can be prevented with a vaccine. The virus is spreading by close personal contact and sharing food and drinking water. I don't think that's how it spreads.
No,
I understand it can spread through by human to human.
Right. Yeah, I know where you're going with this, but
I don't think taking a bite of someone else's sandwich. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor.
If you exchange saliva, for example, that can do it, but it's rare, and it there's a lot of misinformation in this. There's a lot of jumping to conclusions in that article, but I suppose bringing it up, the important thing is this: this regime caused this crisis in Syria. Okay, by our meddling, by our attempting to topple Assad. We're responsible for this, folks, in a large part. We don't have the moral high ground on this. Now, that said, yes, things like the hepatitis outbreaks, but we're causing this refugee problem.
Yeah, we're the ones starting the civil wars over there.
Yeah,
they break down these countries, and then they send our personnel in there to build the countries back up with our taxpayer dollars, and then send people like the Bill and Melinda Gates and the Soros Foundation money over there to give the population vaccines that sterilize the adults and kill the children, or paralyze the children.
And the people like Soros and Gates, in my professional opinion, are funding both sides of this orchestrated conflict. So they're hedging their bets on both sides. And you had made a good point, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about Gates. It's been admitted now that Gates, his vaccination process is about eugenics and population control.
It's admitted. He's the one that admits it.
Well, of course, yeah.
And Melinda Gates, just do a search on her. She's a eugenicist, she says. She doesn't want people... she doesn't want to kill people. She just doesn't want them to live, is what she said. I think on the Colbert Report, one of the fake news, for kids that you were talking about.
And that's what we're coming to. We're coming to, as the Affordable Health Care Act, remember, you have to pass it to see what's in it. And they've added 2,000 more pages of regulations to the Obamacare, if you will, and part of that is end-of-life counseling, and part of it also has to do with your current fitness. So somebody like, I don't know, Chris Christie, who I know on the Drudge Report today, they said something about, he's lucky so far, but his luck's going to run out because of his weight and some other factors. So you take someone like Chris Christie. Well, according to the Obama Act, they're going to have to send in, for example, his BMI, his body mass index, his waist size, his neck size, things like his blood pressure, his pulse rate, his heart rate, and other things to decide the level of care that will be available to him under Obamacare. You don't think this affects you, ladies and gentlemen? Absolutely it does. It affects all of us.
Yeah. And as we see the constant chaos, unrest, uncertainty, the wars, rumors of wars, what's happening in America and to the people spiritually, what's happening to the people of the world spiritually, while Americans are really they have no knowledge of the fact that in other countries Christians are slaughtered just because they're Christians every single day, all over the place. Okay,
and it's coming to America.
And in America, we have this huge delusion. And in 1 Thessalonians, in chapter 2, verse 8 says, "And then the wicked will be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with fire." And it goes on to say, "Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all the deceitfulness and of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they might be damned who believeth not the truth, but had the pleasure in unrighteousness."
And this is exactly what we're seeing right now.
Right. Now, the truth is the word of the Lord Jesus Christ, and your relationship with him is the way to get you through anything in life, any tribulation, calamity that's coming. And it's people say it, the perfect love of God casts out all fear. And I see a lot of people worried about things or seeming to be worried.
Knowledge replaces fear, and faith in God replaces fear.
No, the fear of God is much more powerful than having knowledge. Not knowledge of doctrine. The fear of God comes from understanding him, understanding the way he works, and having that relationship with him. The fear of God will lead you closer to him. But knowledge is dangerous. It's a double-edged sword.
Well, okay, I wouldn't say it's dangerous. I would say it is a double-edged sword. Knowledge without knowledge and without faith. Knowledge without faith is inefficient at the very least.
Yeah.
So, to put it in practical terms, like, you and I would understand it, obviously that's what we've got to infuse we've got to infuse what's in the Bible, the Word, into our daily operations and our day-to-day thoughts, and so we understand that, and I think that's important for everyone to understand. But knowledge does replace fear. Faith in God replaces fear, and faith that you're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, that replaces fear as well. That's my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
One thing too, folks, you've been hearing about this, and I know we've been just like slamming through all this news, but there's so much here. The UN gun grab. We're still looking at this next month.
Did you see Bruce Willis?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And for those who don't know about the story, before you get into the UN part in this, Bruce Willis came out and really, unloaded on the Second Amendment and gun control.
No, he unloaded on behalf of.
Yes. Unloaded on the people who were trying to take away his Second Amendment right. Why wouldn't they take all your rights away from you? Bruce Willis said he's against the new gun control laws that could infringe on Second Amendment rights. The Die Hard star also dismisses any link between Hollywood shootouts and real-life gun violence. He goes on to say, I think that you can't start to pick apart anything out of the Bill of Rights without thinking that it's all going to become undone, Willis told the AP in a recent interview while filming his new movie, A Good Day to Die Hard. If you take one out or change one law, then why wouldn't they take all your rights away from you? And this I say and mention and bring up because we have a Hollywood culture that goes hand in hand with the propaganda and the Obama culture. And to back that up, we have government documents that talk about government's control of Hollywood, their partnership, the Department of Defense's partnership with Hollywood.
Of course. And, you know, well, there's also, and I'm not sure if it was Bruce Willis or another, well, it could have been Bruce Willis, who had referenced as well the UN aspect in all of this, which, I mean, it's a good segue, I suppose, because next month, March 18th, New York City, you're going to see a new round of negotiations. We talked about this before, but I want to remind everyone about this again. You know, the day after Christmas, or the day before Christmas this year, the Obama administration or the Obama regime had quietly reinforced their commitment to cooperate with the UN and this international gun control lobby. Now, we're not hearing much. I mean, we're hearing about states doing this and doing that, and of course the gun legislation. We know the Feinstein bill is not going to pass. We know that. So what's behind that? What's that? All that noise. What's that covering up? Well, it's this, I believe. 133-0. The measure was approved with 17 countries abstaining, and I'm talking about the United Nations General Assembly approving a resolution to begin the renewal of negotiations on the Global Arms Trade Treaty. You might think, okay, this is a bunch of hooey because, you know, for treaties to be enacted, you've got to have so much in the House and Senate and such. But the bottom line here is this. Obama has quietly, and this, by the way, wasn't Christmas Eve. I thought it was the day before. This was on Christmas Eve last year that the UN did vote on this, and Obama quietly said, yeah, we're going to cooperate. And the upcoming meeting he talked about, Rick Wiles from last week did an excellent part on this where he played a clip from 2000 where he talked about the UN's small arms treaty and the globalist gun grab agenda from 2000 and segued it into what events were taking place today, where we see, and what he said was, you'll see Hollywood come out against it, you'll see the media come out against guns. Of course.
And it was, right on the money.
Well, what really kind of got my attention, Brian Woods. Now this guy's from Amnesty International. You might think, so what? Okay, but listen to what he has to say, because this is pretty much in line with the thinking of the progressives in government. He said this. He said, and this is back in July, when the failure to pass an acceptable version of the treaty had gone by, basically. The Reuters had reported, by the way, subsequent to that the adoption of a strong, balanced, and effective arms and trade treaty could be imminent. And then Brian Wood said this: the larger arms trading countries show real political will in the negotiations. We're only months away from securing a new global deal that has the potential to stop weapons reaching those who seriously abuse human rights. And you know what's funny about this? He's not talking about China and Russia and Bosnia. He's talking about the United States. And there you have it. So we have to watch the backdoor dealings of all the things going on and all the bluster. You're not going to see the Feinstein bill go anywhere without serious revision. Will there be serious revision? Perhaps. Will there be universal background checks? Perhaps.
You see there's an article calling for insurance?
Yes, of course. Just, okay, watch the out-of-the-box thinking. That's what we have to watch. The things that you least expect. You know, when we sat doing surveillance, one of the most, I suppose, one of the greatest dangers, in my textbook I'd written, I'd make note of this, it's where you least expect it. You could be watching a target, we'll say, in a surveillance van, and what you're not looking at, we'll say that the neighbor or car or person behind you or beside you that poses the real threat. Well, this is the same thing. You see, the real danger is going to come out of left field. You're not going to see it. We're going to be blindsided by it. And it's this arms trade treaty that has that capability, even though certainly you've got to have states or, the proper voting and such. But to be forewarned, folks, is to be forearmed. Look, the final vote on the UN arms trade treaty, it's going to be held within a couple of months after the conclusion of the talks, which are scheduled for mid-March.
Well, and we see Obama going to Israel apparently on the 20th.
Right. Which, now, the timing is nothing more to the UN Arms Trade Treaty is coincidental, but that his visit to Israel in mid-March is significant in terms of the timing with Iran and this potential nuclear breakthrough, if you will, for the for the weaponry. So all of these things going. And by the way, Obama is the guy who wants to internationalize, if that's a verb, I don't know, the city of Jerusalem, make it an international city. And of course, we know how anyone talking like that, we know that that has always bad things associated with it, because God does not want that city to be broken, split, or otherwise.
No, the opposite, in fact, is what is talked about in the Bible, that land will be gained, but all Jerusalem will become a burdensome stone, as the Bible says, for all nations. And we see that happening today, and we ask ourselves why. Why would such a small piece of land be the focal point of all the international attention it gets on a daily basis? Why are so many coming against it? Why have they come against the people who should have been inhabiting that land for, the centuries before, or the thousands of years it wasn't a land? The people were still crucified. They were persecuted.
Well, my point is this. Grab a newspaper, grab a Bible, read them both, and you'll see...
Bible first.
Well, of course, but look at what's in the newspaper and compare it to what the prophetic verses are in the Bible. And I think you're going to find that we are living... we're living in the last days, and it's clearly evident by what the Bible says and by what we're reading in the paper or by what we're hearing in the news, that things are coming to pass as prophesized in the Bible. So there, that's it. And Jerusalem is that burdensome stone around the neck of nations, and of course, it doesn't have to be, and yet, and like I said yesterday, if this country, if this, and I'm talking about all of the administrations over the last 60 years, if we had any real true resolve, our embassy would be in Jerusalem, not Tel Aviv. But you know what? We're not going to have that. We're not going to have that.
No. A good piece of news here I wanted to hit on. This is on the gun issue. In Governor O'Malley, Second Amendment advocates flocked to Annapolis on Wednesday to rally and testify against a gun control proposal by Governor Martin O'Malley, mounting a massive protest whose scale surprised some observers in the heavily Democratic state. O'Malley, a Democrat, was among the first of more than 400 people scheduled to testify before the state's Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee on the bill which would ban assault weapons and require residents to obtain a license before purchasing a handgun. Before the hearing, more than 1,000 gun right advocates gathered outside the State House to voice their disapproval, echoing scenes that have played out in other state capitals where the push for gun control by Democratic leaders in the wake of last year's school shooting is now getting blowback from Republicans as well as many conservative and rural Democrats. It just seems to be rather punitive to the law-abiding citizens of the state, like myself, Tom Morris Jr., a Maryland resident and former correspondent for the TV series America's Most Wanted, said during Wednesday's hearing. We can limit the capacity of magazines, but that's not going to stop a criminal from putting as many bullets as he can get.
I mean, that's such a ridiculous thing. Folks, you know that, how ridiculous that is. Oh, put epoxy. If you got a 10-round magazine to be legal in New York State, you got to epoxy the last three cartridges. So you're legal. But how much time does it take to switch magazines?
Right. In prepared remarks, Mr. O'Malley told the committee that tightening the state's gun laws will help prevent mass shootings and deter illegal gun buyers and traffickers. Now, first of all, Connecticut, where the place where Sandy Hook took place, has and had in place already an assault weapons ban.
Of course.
This school is a gun-free zone. And let me take it a step further. He goes on to say it will deter illegal gun buyers and traffickers. Look at drugs. The fact that drugs on the street are illegal
heroin
to stop people from accessing them?
Cocaine?
No. I mean, the flawed logic, the flawed attempts or the failed attempts at trying to shape public opinion by, as I forget who put it this way, like Pierce Morgan was standing on the graves of the Sandy Hook kids to push a political agenda. In every one of these articles that I see, they're constantly referencing, when it comes to the gun control bills,
right?
It's constantly they constantly reference Sandy Hook.
But see, and here's something that
it's always
everyone,
after last month's Sandy Hook shooting, after last year's Sandy Hook shooting.
See, folks, though, according to the source, my source, Sandy Hook was not sufficient.
And
think about that. It was not sufficient.
Earlier in the day, O'Malley was expected to attend a strategy meeting a mile down the road in Annapolis between Obama and U.S. Senate Democrats. We choose to take on gun violence because every life is precious, the governor said during his testimony. Because every life is needed. Because there is no tragedy worse than the death of a child. Okay? No tragedy worse than the death of a child.
Sure.
Well, Mr. O'Malley, what is your stance on abortion? Let's see.
I had asked my wife about this. I said, how could, and folks, maybe you can relate to this.
O'Malley surprisingly supports abortion. Not only that, supports taxpayer dollars to fund it.
All right. But see, I asked my wife, I said, give me some clarity on this. Give me some focus. Give me the logic. What are people thinking? And it's clear. She said, well, people don't believe that unborn children are, it's not her opinion, but people don't believe unborn children are human beings, even though clearly, I don't know the dates or the trimesters, but clearly they are. But that's not the thought process. And so they're, like you said, their logic is flawed.
Not only that, listen to this. This is from 2010. O'Malley is among America's most despicable politicians. Their abortion rate is 40% higher than the national abortion rate in his state. This article says O'Malley's character and morale convictions, the governor used your Maryland tax dollars to fund about $2.5 million in Medicaid abortions annually. Maryland is one of only 16 states that fund Medicaid abortions for any reason. Our state abortion rate is nearly 40% higher than that of the national rate. A compassionate leader would use those funds to save lives, not end them. So now when we hear O'Malley saying, if we can do this to save one child's life.
But forget about the 60 million plus.
The biggest tragedy is the loss of a child.
Well, again, we're not going to win this argument because we are trying to
using common sense?
Well, yes, and we are talking with people who believe that a woman's right to kill a child in the womb is
a choice.
It's a right. It's their right because it's their body. But what about the life and the soul of the unborn? And I can hear almost the eyes of the people listening to this rolling back in their heads saying, oh, not this again.
Yes,
but
this again.
This is the root of the issue. It is not a political problem. It's a spiritual problem that this country has.
Yeah. And Planned Parenthood, the number one driver of abortions in this nation, is funded by our government through taxpayer dollars. It's funded by the same people. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, obviously, the number one, and the Soroses. There was actually a guy who got on tape, called and wanted to make a sizable donation, only if that donation could go towards only aborting African American or minority babies. He was assured that his money would be used for just that purpose.
How does that work?
51% of African American babies have not been born.
So where's the outrage? Where's the outrage over that? Where's the cause of racism over that?
Right. I mean, it's a level of deception and insanity that sadly is so in your face, yet so many are so far from the truth. And I think a lot of it stems back to what I read earlier about truth in the Bible. And if you don't have a knowledge of God, if you don't have thirsting for learning about the Lord, His ways, through reading His Word and prayer, that's where all knowledge begins. It will show you where to go from there. But if you start with the foundation of looking for worldly knowledge, that could lead you. I mean, you could be led to the Lord through your research. Few do make it there. Most are caught up in more worldly things and other New Age deceptions because there are so many out there, and they sound so appealing. Anything to get away from the responsibilities of having to help other people and live the way the Bible says.
Right.
It's like everyone's for themselves. Everyone is for their own agenda. People will use from 9/11 to Sandy Hook to Earth natural disasters to push political agendas. That's how sick our nation has become. With one side of their mouth saying we need to ban your rights to protect yourselves because somebody else, and you're more likely, I think, to get hit by lightning than die in a mass shooting. The statistics are. But we need to take your guns away because the possibility that somebody else in the future could use a gun to kill people, while we have the biggest killing machine factories in the history of the world through our abortion clinics, which you help pay for. It's just the most unnatural, evil, Twilight Zone mentality and world we live in. Good is evil. Good is called evil, and evil is considered good. Society in America is so far gone that their lack of understanding of the times that we're in, the things that are happening in places outside of America and inside of America, outside of their region, will lead to their both physical and spiritual death.
That's correct. That's very correct. In a non sequitur fashion, if I can, I just want to mention this, folks. Turkey. We had done so much investigation and research on the.
I say you couldn't.
What's that? Turkey.
The first thing that came to my mind was the actual turkey.
Actual turkey. Well, think about this.
Must be hungry.
Turkey, we had talked about this in our Benghazi articles where, remember, Stevens met with the Turkey Consul General last meeting before he was murdered. Remember how Turkey was the staging ground for Western weapons from Libya to be used against the Assad regime. And Russia has put so much pressure on Turkey. Well, it seems like Turkey might be leaving NATO. We had indicated this in our research articles initially. Folks, this is important news because there's a realignment of nations taking place in Europe as well as the Middle East, but Turkey is now going toward a Russian/Chinese alliance rather than NATO, leaving NATO altogether perhaps, and by doing so will fulfill biblical prophecy in a number of cases. So think about that. It's an important bit of news. You're not going to find it in the headlines of the New York Times or the Washington Post. But and again, it kind of, I'm throwing this out there in kind of a hodgepodge fashion of news today that we're giving you. But it's important to understand, as Turkey goes, so will that area of the world. And now it looks like Turkey's going to abandon the West, and which well,
what does that mean to the average Fox News Super Bowl watching person?
It means that the mushroom clouds that they're going to see that will blind their ability to watch TV will be because of the foreign policy of the current regime in the White House. It means that what was done in Libya, what we had told everyone, the 50,000 deaths in Libya that resulting from this civil war is going to turn into 4 million via displaced people in Syria. But more importantly, or equally important, is this. Because of Turkey leaving NATO, and they will, and because of the alliances being formed by our meddling, by this Arab Spring, by this Saudi Arabian-backed plan, this agenda, that the nuclear blasts that will take place in the Middle East, perhaps beginning with Damascus, compliments perhaps of Israel, will be because it will be a direct result of our foreign policy in Arab Spring by upsetting dictators like Mubarak and Gaddafi. Should we have done it? Well, arguably, why them and not others? But what does that mean to the average person watching the Super Bowl? It means that we're just 1 minute closer to midnight on the atomic clock, or the nuclear. The nuclear threat is becoming more and more real, and it's not necessarily compliments of Iran, but compliments of the United States.
And all this is leading to judgment upon the world from the Lord. And I guess we can just leave you with this from Jude. It says, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all, and to all convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. These are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lusts, with their mouth speaketh great swelling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage. But, beloved, remember the words which was spoken of the apostles of our Lord Jesus Christ, how that they told you there should be mockers in the last time, who should walk after their own ungodly lust. These be they who separate themselves, not having not the Spirit. But you, beloved, building up yourselves on your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Ghost, keep yourselves in the love of God, looking for the mercy of the Lord Jesus Christ unto eternal life.
And there you have it. And that's what it's all about. I mean, apply that to use that as once again as a kind of a transparent template over what's happening today.
Yeah.
Folks, look, 3 hours went by just extremely quick. We're sorry we did not get into any phone calls.
We want to thank you for the staying with us and being patient while we had our sound issues. Tomorrow, we have author of
Daniel Holdings. Wow.
Daniel Holdings, As the Darkness. I can't see the rest of that title of the book.
Which one? As the Darkness Falls.
Yes, Daniel Holdings, As the Darkness Falls, tomorrow on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. God bless each and every one of you. Stay safe. We will see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I think Mr. Daniel Holdings is coming on in the beginning.
Yeah, he will, and he'll stay on as long as the interest is there, talking about various news issues. The book is a faction book, mixture of fact and fiction. However, the discussion will be current events.
Looking forward to that. God bless you all. I'll see you tomorrow.